Chapter 8:15. Putting everything together, Xiao Su quickly understood what had happened. He had still underestimated the women of the Liang family. He had thought that if he left them to the side as long as they didn't cause any trouble, he would send people to send them back to the capital. But he didn't expect them to be the same as his uncles, so ambitious. As expected, if the upper beam is not straight, the lower beam will be crooked. Xiao Su suddenly stood up and threw down a sentence to Hualing, "Go to the side yard." After dealing with Mama Hong and the others, he thought it would have a deterrent effect on them, but they were bold enough to set their sights on him and even slandered the little fellow. These people had already stepped on his bottom line. Hualing knew his master was angry. He wanted to vent for the little princess consort, but due to his status, now that his master had spoken, what was there to be afraid of? He happily followed. "Older sister, I heard from the front yard that Chu Qingyan left the Fu this morning. It seems like she lost without a fight." When Liang Danbing heard the news, she immediately rushed over to share the good news with her older sister. Although Liang Danjing felt that Chu Qingyan's action of running away from home was a bit puzzling, but for them, it was undoubtedly a great piece of news. "It seems like today is a good day," Liang Danjing happily said. At this time, Liang Danbing came in front of her and mysteriously said, "Older sister, since Chu Qingyan left this time, why don't we go all the way and make her?" As she said this, Liang Danbing made a gesture of slitting her throat. Liang Danjing shook her head in disapproval. "If it was any other time, I wouldn't object, but this time, I don't think it's appropriate and there's no need." Liang Danbing was a bit puzzled. "Why? This is a good opportunity. I've been in contact with Chu Qingyan for a while and thought she would be a rival, but I didn't think it would be so easy to anger her. Although eldest cousin dotes on her, so what? Men generally like obedient and virtuous women. If they make too much noise, the man will lose interest. So in my opinion, even if Chu Qingyan comes back this time, she has already lost eldest cousin's favor. Chu Qingyan is just SOSO. So what are you worried about? What's there to be afraid of if he's not favored? Next, we just have to think of a way to capture eldest cousin's heart. Wouldn't the position of consort or consort be ours?" Liang Danjing thought about how she had been scheming to get rid of her for the past 2 days. She didn't expect her to be so weak. She smiled complacently. In terms of intelligence, Chu Qingyan was still a little inexperienced. Liang Danbing couldn't help but widen her eyes. She gave Liang Danjing a thumbs up and said, "Sister, you're still the best." This time, it didn't take any effort at all to drive Chu Qingyan out of the mansion in anger. "Let me widen my horizons." Younger sister now understands why mother always told me to look up to you. Liang Danjing calmly accepted her sister's praise. But at this moment, the door was suddenly pushed open from the outside. "Who is so unruly? Be careful, I'll serve you properly." The two people in the room were shocked. Liang Danbing was the first to open her mouth and said arrogantly. Liang Danbing had completely forgotten that she was here. She was only a guest. Taking over the host like this made the people outside unhappy. When Liang Danbing's words fell, Hualing led Xiao like cavalry into the room in 2 rows, standing neatly on both sides. After seeing these people clearly, Liang Danbing's face turned white. Weren't these the guards by eldest cousin's side? Liang Danjing unhappily glared at her younger sister. She really couldn't accomplish anything, but was good at spoiling things. When the two of them recovered from their shock, they wanted to go up and greet him, but the main character had already walked in. It was as if he had walked out from hell. His entire body was covered in a murderous aura. Liang Danjing and Liang Danbing were raised in the boudoir. When had they ever seen Xiao Su with such an iron-blooded murderous aura? They were instantly frozen in place, as if taking another step forward would bring them into the abyss. Xiao Su walked in front of the two of them. His eyes swept over them and landed on Liang Danjing. He gave a cold snort. "Miss Liang is well read. You're proficient in zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. You even know a man's heart so well. You're truly worthy of being born in the Liang family." This was the first time they heard Xiao Su say such a long speech to them. They didn't expect it to be in this kind of situation. Although every word and sentence was full of praise, Liang Danjing's face turned pale little by little. These words, when used on a girl, could be said to be extremely harsh. It turned out that he had heard everything they said just now from outside. Liang Danjing suddenly had a feeling that a great disaster was about to befall them. Although Liang Danbing was afraid, when she heard Xiao Su say this to her older sister, she immediately spoke up to defend her. Eldest cousin, what do you mean? What do I mean? Xiao Su glanced at Liang Danbing. Ben Wang's meaning is clear enough. You? Liang Danbing took a step forward, wanting to argue, but her older sister stopped her. She was shocked. Older sister? Liang Danjing had already recovered her calm. She shook her head at her younger sister, then raised her head to smile at Xiao Su, as if the person who was panicking just now wasn't herself. Eldest cousin, why did you come here at this time? Ben Wang thought you knew. Xiao Su said coldly. Liang Danbing was swept back by Xiao Su's gaze and didn't dare to speak again. Liang Danjing bit her lip and resisted this cold gaze, not to be outdone. Liang Danjing forced a smile. Younger sister really doesn't know. Xiao Su narrowed his eyes. Ben Wang knows that you came here under Imperial Mother's orders. Ben Wang didn't make things difficult for you and even let Ian arrange a place to stay. It's not because I acknowledge your status, but because I want to appease Imperial Mother's heart. As long as you don't cause any trouble, Ben Wang guarantees that you will safely return to the Liang family. When you get married in the future, Ben Wang will definitely send you rich congratulatory gifts. It's a pity that you touched Ian. These words were even more embarrassing than a direct rejection. The Liang family's beautiful sisters instantly paled. Liang Danbing flew into a rage out of humiliation. She didn't care that the other party was the legendary bloodthirsty war god. What's so good about Chu Qingyan? Is it worth you protecting her like this? In terms of talent, she can't compare to my older sister. In terms of family background, she can't compare to our Liang family. She is completely useless. How can she help you in the future? Is this how the Liang family teaches their children? Conceited? Xiao Su's eyes were cold. Hearing this, he could imagine how much the little fellow had suffered in front of them. People that always talked about their family background and status, how could they expect them to be merciful? Liang Danbing's lips trembled. She didn't know how to refute this. Ben Wang doesn't need you to remind me of whether I need help or not. If you and the people behind you can't know your place, Ben Wang can eliminate the Liang family right now. Xiao Su disdained arguing with women. He had specially come today because he had some words that he needed to use their mouths to pass on to the Liang family. Once these words were said, the blood drained from their faces. Chapter 8:16. The reason why the Liang sisters were so fearless was not only because of Empress Liang's support, but also because they relied on the Liang family's power. Therefore, Xiao Su could not fall out with the Liang family. But who would have thought that Xiao Su did not care about the Liang family at all? Once this understanding was broken, how could the two sisters of the Liang family not panic? Eldest cousin, what do you want to do? Liang Danjing was still calm, but the trembling in her voice revealed her current emotions. Without waiting for Xiao Su to answer, Hualing bowed and said, "To Mrs., the carriage to return to the capital has been prepared. Please pack your luggage and set off before the sky turns dark." What? Xiao Su wanted to send them away? Liang Danbing shook her head in fear. "Eldest cousin, you can't do this. We were sent here by Aunt. If we go back like this, what will the noble children of the capital think of us? How will our Liang family stand in the court?" When they first came to Jiangnan, it was not done in secret. The Liang family had already spread the word. Originally, they thought their marriage to the imperial family was set in stone. If they were sent back like this, not only would they lose face, even the Liang family would lose face. They thought that even if Chu Qingyan left the Fu without permission, he would still be angry and not give face to the monk. But he did not care about their friendship and acted so ruthlessly. That's your business. When you spoke ill of Ian and tried to drive a wedge between us, you should have thought of today's situation. At the beginning, he had considered too many things and let the little fellow suffer. Xiao Su's gaze tightened. Although he did not personally see the little fellow leave Jiangnan, he could imagine how uncomfortable it was for her to make this decision. The people he cared about, even if he was angry with her, he rarely said harsh words because he was afraid she would feel uncomfortable. But the people he tried his best to protect were insulted by them. How could he not be angry? Liang Danjing saw further than her sister. If they left Jiangnan today, then their Liang family and Xiao Su would be irreparable. She took a step forward. Her eyes were filled with tears and she looked very pitiful. Eldest cousin, I was possessed. I felt that big sister Chu's family background and personality were not suitable for you. That was why I said something that caused big sister Chu to misunderstand. I already know that I was wrong. If big sister Chu comes back, I am willing to apologize and clear the misunderstanding. The tears in her eyes stubbornly refused to fall. In Liang Danjing's mind, for a man like Xiao Su to be so obedient and gentle towards Chu Qingyan, he should be someone who cherishes the fairer sex. Today, he had said so much only because he was angry. As long as she admitted her mistake and showed weakness, perhaps his anger would dissipate and he would no longer be angry. Unfortunately, Liang Danjing didn't understand Xiao Su. In this world, if there was someone that could make Xiao Su's iron heart soften, then only Chu Qingyan's tears could soften his heart. Others would only make him more annoyed. There's no need to apologize. This prince believes that for Ayan, what the eye doesn't see, the heart doesn't grieve over. That is what she wants to see. Xiao Su lightly said. When Liang Danjing heard this, she wanted to pull on his sleeve and plead for mercy. But before her fingers could touch his clothes, he flung her hand away. She was the first miss of the honorable noble family of Xixian nation. She had never humbly begged anyone before. However, her compromise did not get the result she wanted. Instead, she was easily trampled on. It was as if she had fallen from the clouds into a quagmire. She was in a sorry state. Jealousy and resentment filled her eyes bit by bit. She steadied her footsteps and looked at Xiao Su with hatred as she said, enunciating each word clearly. What ability does Chu Qingyan have to receive older cousin's special treatment? She is not worthy of you in any way. This kind of imperial daughter-in-law will only bring shame to the imperial family. In the future, she will not be able to provide you with any help. This kind of person is not your wings, but your chicken ribs. In this king's eyes, no one can compare to her. Xiao Su's voice was filled with anger. What qualifications do you have to criticize her? He was rarely angered by others, but this little fellow was his bottom line. If anyone disrespected her, he would definitely get back at them for her. From the moment they entered the door until now, although Xiao Su was dissatisfied with them, he had not shown any obvious anger. Liang Danjing finally discovered that Chu Qingyan was not just a girl that Xiao Su was interested in. She felt that if they could not safely get through today, then they would not have a chance to become the imperial concubine of the King of England in the future. She knew that Xiao Su did not like them bringing up the Liang family, but she had no way out now. Fine, I don't have the qualifications, but what about the Liang family? Our Liang family is loyal to you and wholeheartedly wants to support you, but you are always so distant. Now, you don't even put the Liang family in your eyes, but you turn a deaf ear to our sincerity. Older cousin, by doing this, are you worthy of your aunt, who painstakingly raised you, and the Liang family, who are loyal to you and have schemed for you? Schemed for this king? Xiao Su raised his eyebrows slightly, revealing a trace of mockery. Liang Danjing panicked because of his words. For so many years, if it was not for his help in the dark, the Liang family would have been completely swallowed up by the Fu family in the past 2 years. If the Liang family could be on par with the Fu family now and know their place, perhaps he would have protected them for a few years. Unfortunately, people's desires swelled with power. Now, they were no longer satisfied with the current situation and were in a heated argument with the Fu family. His imperial mother was also adding fuel to the fire behind the scenes. In a few years, the Liang family's 100 years of foundation would be destroyed in the hands of this generation. This king can let the Liang family stand tall in the court and not fall, but I can also make the Liang family disappear in an instant. If you know what's good for you, then scram back to the capital. Otherwise, don't blame this king for personally taking action. When these words were said, the Liang sisters' legs turned to jelly and they almost collapsed to the ground. Xiao Su would definitely do what he said. No one would have thought that their little provocation would cause the Liang family and Xiao Su to shed all pretense of cordiality. She was just a lowly Chu Qingyan. Xiao Su didn't even bother to look at them. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. Hua Ling, who was left in the room, was angry at the two of them, but because of the gentlemanly demeanor the little princess had mentioned, he kindly reminded them. There are still 6 hours before the sky turns dark. The Fu will not keep the two misses for dinner. Please have the servant girls quickly clean up so you can be on your way. Hua Ling's calm words and the guards who were glaring at them from the side made Liang Danjing see the situation clearly. They had already been abandoned by Xiao Su. No, it should be because of them that the Liang family had been abandoned by Xiao Su. Chapter 8:17. Xiao Su received Turin's news when he returned from the side courtyard. Master, the young princess consort has already left Jiangnan and is heading north. Turin stood in the study and reported quickly. How many people did she bring with her? Xiao Su asked in a low voice. Su Yi and the others have all taken her away. Jean Xian is also with her. Did our men follow her? They did, but they kept a certain distance. They were worried that the young princess consort would discover them. Fortunately, although the young princess consort left in a hurry, she had brought her men with her. Otherwise, he wouldn't have the guts to report. Xiao Su pondered after hearing this. He had heard the little fellow mention that he planned to send men to assist Sima Jun's group. However, he had been busy with the official salt and had been in a cold war with the little fellow for the past 2 days, so he hadn't had the time to ask about the details. Xiao Su suddenly regretted not asking about the little fellow's affairs. That was why he didn't know anything about the little fellow. Lan Manor's influence was spread all over the world. This matter of seizing power was no small matter. The little fellow's trip boded ill rather than well. Xiao Su didn't think too much and said, "Prepare the horses. We will set off in a quarter of an hour." Turin didn't dare to delay and immediately agreed. Xiao Su's expression was deep. No one could tell what he was thinking. Hua Ling walked in at this time. Seeing his master's cold aura, he couldn't help but lower his head. Master, the 2 young misses of the Liang family have already left the Fu. Xiao Su's tone was indifferent. Send a few people to keep an eye on them. Don't cause any trouble. Yes, this subordinate has already informed the hidden guards along the way. Hua Ling replied. When we return, go to the disciplinary hall to receive your punishment. Xiao Su turned to look at him, his tone was still indifferent. Hua Ling lowered his head even more. This subordinate knows his mistake. Although his master didn't say why he was being punished, Hua Ling understood. That night, when the young princess consort went to find his master, he should have paid attention and reported it afterwards. Otherwise, today's incident wouldn't have happened. When Xiao Su and his entourage left on their horses, Cheng Yanluo stood on top of the attic and looked in the direction of the billowing smoke with a gratified smile. This Xiao Su was finally enlightened and knew how to chase after people. She could be at ease. When she turned around and stretched, she saw Ethereal standing in the corner. Her expression stiffened for a moment, and then she put down her hand as if nothing had happened. She gave him a polite smile and prepared to leave. Cheng Yanluo heard him speak as they brushed past each other. Xiaoyan, this is a medicinal powder that I came up with a few days ago. Pour it into warm water and take it. It can relieve the hoarseness in your throat. Ethereal took out a white jade bottle from his sleeve and handed it to her. On the way back, the cargo ship had encountered a storm and she had fallen sick. Although she had recuperated for a few days, her throat still felt uncomfortable, but the symptoms weren't very obvious. She had wanted to go to the kitchen to stew some snow pear with rock sugar, but she didn't expect him to see through her illness. Cheng Yanluo looked at the gentle and caring person in front of her and her heart surged. But she quickly suppressed the surge and raised her hand, intending to take the bottle. Perhaps Ethereal didn't expect her to accept it so readily and thought that he would have to spend a lot of effort to persuade her. He was slightly distracted and forgot to let go of Cheng Yanluo's hand when she was about to take the bottle. Their fingertips touched and both of them were stunned. Cheng Yanluo didn't know whether to take it back or not. Thus, the two of them looked at each other awkwardly. Ethereal caught the flash of hesitation in her eyes. Before she could retract her hand, he gently grasped her wrist and placed the bottle in her palm. He glanced at her before releasing her hand and taking a step back. He said, "I have something to do in the pharmacy. I'll take my leave first." It was rare that she didn't quarrel with him. Although Ethereal longed for the peaceful atmosphere between the two of them, he was afraid that he would say something wrong. She didn't want to accept the medicine, so he turned and left, not daring to linger. Cheng Yanluo was dazed for a moment when she felt the warmth on her wrist. But before she could regain her senses, the warmth was gone. When she looked up, all she could see was his back as he slowly walked down the stairs until he was out of sight. Cheng Yanluo retracted her gaze and looked at the ice-cold bottle in her hand. The corners of her mouth twitched slightly. Such self-righteous concern. Don't you know that this small illness can be cured with just 2 bowls of snow pear with rock sugar? What a waste of energy! Although she said that, Cheng Yanluo still reluctantly accepted the bottle. On the streets of Jiangnan, a carriage was moving through the crowd. As soon as it reached the city gates, it heard a conversation inside. "Elder sister, what should we do? Are we really going to leave just like that?" Liang Danbing hadn't dared to speak since her elder sister was angrily reprimanded by Xiao Su in the afternoon. When she saw her elder sister's ugly expression, she was afraid that she would say something that Xiao Su could use against her. It was only now that she asked in a trembling voice, "Our trip to Jiangnan has failed. We have no other choice but to leave this place first." Liang Danjing's voice was light and weak. The confrontation with Xiao Su just now had exhausted all her strength. "Then what's next?" Liang Danbing asked. "Don't be afraid. There's also Aunt. We must report today's matter to Aunt and Uncle as soon as possible. There are some things that we can't do in person, but don't forget about the people behind us." Liang Danjing's face was full of resentment when she said this. But eldest cousin doesn't care about our Liang family at all. Even if Aunt comes forward, is there any room to turn things around? Thinking of eldest cousin's words just now, Liang Danbing couldn't help but tremble. That was simply the king of hell that came from hell. He was too terrifying. The rumors were true. Xiao Su's words are like that, but Aunt will not agree with him doing this. Although His Majesty is still in his prime, the position of Crown Prince will be decided sooner or later. He needs our Liang family. Liang Danjing's eyes were dark as she spoke with certainty. Just as Liang Danbing wanted to say something, she suddenly heard the sound of horse hooves. It was uniform like thunder. Liang Danbing couldn't help but lift the curtain and saw Hua Ling's group of people quickly riding their horses down the road in front of them. Liang Danjing also saw this group of people. Her eyes fell on the person wearing a bamboo hat at the front. Although she couldn't see his face, she could still determine that person was Xiao Su. "Elder sister, where are they going?" Liang Danbing suddenly forgot her own situation. Seeing such a well-dressed group of people, her voice carried a trace of shock. "They should be looking for Chu Qingyan." Liang Danjing didn't want to admit it in her heart, but she still replied. "They actually sent out this many people. It seems like eldest cousin really cares about Chu Qingyan, that cheap wench." Liang Danbing gritted her teeth as she vented her anger. Liang Danjing thought for a bit before saying, "Send a messenger pigeon to Aunt and say that Chu Qingyan has left the palace." "Why are you telling Aunt this?" Liang Danbing still had not recovered from her anger. "Just do as I say." She had always known that her aunt wanted to get rid of Chu Qingyan. If not, she would not have sent the most experienced nanny in the palace, as well as her most trusted bodyguard. However, her aunt probably did not know that her people would be destroyed so quickly. Since it was like this, she would give Aunt a chance. If Chu Qingyan died outside without knowing anything, then it couldn't be blamed on them. "Chu Qingyan, without eldest cousin's protection, I want to see how long you can live." Thinking of this, a sinister smile appeared on his usually calm face. Chapter 8:18. The group had been walking for 3 days. At this time, Chu Qingyan and the rest stopped in the wilderness to rest. Tan Ning held 2 pieces of clear water filled with lotus leaves and handed them to the 2 masters. Then, she heard the two of them bickering. Why do we have to rest here? If we don't continue, we won't be able to enter the city when it gets dark. Chu Qingyan complained to Sima Jun, because this lady is tired from walking and wants to rest. Do you have a problem with that? Sima Jun said righteously. Chu Qingyan choked on her words. Then, her eyes flashed as if she thought of something. She looked at Sima Jun maliciously. Is it because there are more people looking at me than you on the streets today? So you're unhappy? Sima Jun wasn't angry that she was exposed. She was thick-skinned. She crossed her legs and said in a tone that was asking for a beating, I'm just unhappy. What can you do about it? TSK, who told you to wear a veil? We don't have discerning eyes, and we're not that sophisticated to be able to see through a veil. So, you're being unreasonable. Chu Qingyan waved her hand, looking very disdainful. Chu Qingyan had a beautiful face that deceived the world. Along the way, she received the coquettish glances of many young girls. Compared to Sima Jun, who covered her face with a white veil all day, she was very eye-catching. Little girl, you actually dare to bully me. Take this. Sima Jun flew up. When she leaped over a tall tree, she grabbed a branch and swung it at Chu Qingyan. Bring it on, who's afraid of who? Chu Qingyan imitated her words. She was really asking for a beating. She kicked the ground and a branch flew up. Then she clenched her fist and exchanged blows with Sima Jun. Everyone had long been accustomed to this scene. It was nothing more than the two masters' hands itching and wanting to exchange blows. However, every time, the topic of dispute was not the same. It was really difficult for them. Thus, everyone went to collect firewood, light a fire, and hunt. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. After fighting to their heart's content, Chu Qingyan and Sima Jun looked at each other with satisfaction on their faces. There aren't many people who can exchange a few blows with me. Sima Jun's words were filled with praise for Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan was not to be outdone. Speaking of which, I rarely see people who can still stand after exchanging 50 moves with me. After saying that, the two of them looked at each other and laughed. Chu Qingyan, you are an interesting person. Sima Jun walked forward and patted her on the shoulder, laughing very happily. Chu Qingyan smiled. Same here. It's been a long time since I've met someone who suits my taste so well. Didn't I buy a few pots of wine today? I want to drink to my heart's content. After saying that, Sima Jun left her behind and quickly walked towards the fire. Drunkard. Chu Qingyan shook her head and laughed. Along the way, she found out that Sima Jun was a person who would not be happy without wine. However, he could not get drunk. It could be said that he would not get drunk even after 1,000 cups. Chu Qingyan was very envious. Chu Qingyan threw away the branch in her hand and followed with a smile. Just as she walked to the fire, Sima Jun had already opened a pot of wine. When he saw her coming, he casually threw the wine pot to her. Chu Qingyan caught it in a fluster and heaved a sigh of relief. Smelling the wine, she could not help but think of a certain person's threat. She immediately returned it to Sima Jun. Drink it yourself. I just said that you were interesting. Now you're not interesting enough. It's just a cup of wine. You always make excuses. Boring. Sima Jun ignored the wine jug that was handed to him. He took another jug and opened it with his teeth. Then he took a big gulp from the jug. Chu Qingyan smiled apologetically and sat down beside him. I really don't know how to drink. Don't make things difficult for me. What do you mean you don't know how to drink? You can't be drunk after 1 cup, right? Sima Jun looked at her suspiciously. Chu Qingyan scratched her head. I don't know either. Anyway, big ice cube. At this point, her expression turned gloomy and she changed the topic. I still have to keep watch. What if someone sneaks up on me? Sima Jun looked at her meaningfully. There are so many people keeping watch. You won't make a difference. I think you're thinking that your husband has ordered you repeatedly. You're not even married yet and you're already so obedient. Be careful that when you get married, he'll eat you whole. You're single. Don't you have to let go of your guts and have fun? Otherwise, why is marriage a grave? Chu Qingyan's expression turned sour. She lowered her brows to hide the emotions in her eyes. When Sima Jun saw her half-dead expression again, He felt that all the effort he had put in to make her livelier was in vain. He couldn't help but lose some of his interest in drinking. Little girl, running away isn't a solution. Because the problem is like a ball. As long as it isn't solved, you'll still end up back at the same place after running around in a big circle. Sima Jun said earnestly. Chu Qingyan looked up, but she was looking at the darkness in the distance. She said calmly, I'm not running away from the problem. I just want to calm my heart. Won't you still have to face it in the end? Why waste time? Sima Jun retorted. Chu Qingyan admitted that she was right. However, not everyone could live as an outsider. Those involved could not see clearly and understand the logic. But when it happened to them, they were helpless. She still couldn't face Big Ice Cube. Thinking of this, Chu Qingyan retorted sarcastically, Sima, what about you? What's the matter with that era leader? You won her heart and then don't want her anymore. It's not good to abandon her after having sex with her. Sima Jun didn't expect the person in front of her to lead the fire to her. It was rare for her to suddenly become a caring older sister, but the person in front of her didn't appreciate it. What era leader? I don't know him. She denied flatly. I know. He's not called era leader. He's called Ji Linyang. Chu Qingyan chuckled. I say, you suddenly came to Jiangnan to avoid him. Sima Jun's face darkened. She glared fiercely at Tan Ing. Chu Qingyan had been hanging out with her these past few days. This girl must have betrayed her. Tan Ing received her master's resentment and immediately jumped up. This subordinate will go change Shangguang's medicine. With that, she slipped away as quickly as she could. Sima Jun angrily raised her head and drank another mouthful of wine. She wanted to change the topic, but Chu Qingyan didn't intend to let her off. She leaned over and tossed the wine jug in her hand. She asked mysteriously, hurry up and tell me, what's going on between you and Ji Linyang? How did you abandon him after having sex with him? Sima Jun pushed her away and said in annoyance, I didn't expect you to be so nosy. If you're not drinking, go away. Don't disturb me when I'm drinking. Chu Qingyan could tell that Sima Jun would change at the mention of Ji Linyang. She hugged the wine jug and drank fiercely. It was as if she was the one who had been abandoned. How strange. Chu Qingyan was very curious about the person Sima Jun cared about. She really wanted to meet him. However, she didn't expect that she would meet Ji Linyang so soon. Chapter 8:19. Xiao Su's group rushed day and night and finally arrived at a town. Originally, they could have caught up with Chu Qingyan's group yesterday. However, when they took a shortcut and passed by a mountain, they encountered a group of bandits. These bandits took over the mountain and acted like kings. They burned, killed, and plundered, causing the people here to suffer. Because the bandits were familiar with the complicated terrain, it was easy to defend and difficult to attack. Thus, Xiao Su led people to deal with them for 2 days. In the end, they directly attacked and annihilated them in one fell swoop. Where are they now? Xiao Su asked expressionlessly as he stood in front of the stronghold that was filled with flames and looked down at the continuous mountain range below. Hua Ling stepped forward and replied, according to the time, the young princess consort should have arrived at Meilong town. Lu Guang, take a few people and stay behind to watch the bandits. When the local officials arrive, hand them over to them. The rest of you, get ready and rest. We will set off in 2 hours. Xiao Su ordered. An orderly voice resounded in the valley. After the people behind him dispersed, Xiao Su walked to the top of the mountain and stood against the wind, looking into the distance. Little fellow, I won't let you wait for too long. The night passed peacefully, but Sima Jun drank a lot. She only woke up when they were on the road. After a good night's sleep, neither Chu Qingyan nor Gu Ruoyun mentioned their conversation last night. Hey, cover your face. Don't use that face of yours to fool around. I don't want to cover myself up like you. I want to be magnanimous in front of others. Shameless. I want to be shameless, that's why I show others. Along the way, they jested as usual. They walked like this for another 2 days. Because they received news that the traitor Xing Ming of Lan Manor had sent people to search for Sima Jun's whereabouts in the big towns, They did not go to the towns anymore. It's all your fault. I can't go see handsome men and beautiful women now. Chu Qingyan bit on a straw and looked unhappily at the person lying in the carriage like a spineless person. This person had only ridden for 2 days and was complaining of back pain. She had no choice but to find a carriage for her. What's so good about handsome men and beautiful women? They're just skin bags. I've never heard of it. Form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Stop. Chu Qingyan had a headache when she heard this. By the way, who was the one who said yesterday that if you die under a peony flower, you will be a romantic ghost? I didn't expect you to have 2 faces. Yesterday and today are different. Silly, this is called being flexible, okay? Living the lives of 2 people, that's called being smart. Sima Jun's words left Chu Qingyan speechless. Chu Qingyan snorted coldly and could not be bothered with her. It was another night spent in the wilderness. Summer was approaching and the weather was getting hotter and hotter. In the wild, there were many mosquitoes, rats, and ants. Chu Qingyan was bitten several times. She regretted not bringing Yen Luo's mosquito repellent with her, so she could only squat here and feed the mosquitoes. They had been walking for several days. According to Tan Ying, they were about to reach Lan Manor's nest. Chu Qingyan could clearly feel the atmosphere getting more and more tense along the way. Because she had scattered the people around her and hid in the dark, there were only 4 or 5 people following her. In the eyes of outsiders, it was nothing more than a playboy taking his beautiful wife out to play. But today, Chu Qingyan found that Sima Jun was unexpectedly silent. Even when she tried to make her laugh, Sima Jun didn't respond and was often distracted. Chu Qingyan found it very strange. While they were resting at night, she pulled Tan Ying to one side. What's wrong with your master? Because she had told Chu Qingyan about Ji Linyang last time, her master had ignored her for several days. Tan Ying waved her hand with lingering fear. This subordinate doesn't know anything. With that, she immediately ran away as if there was a wolf chasing after her. The more they acted like this, the more Chu Qingyan felt that there must be something going on. But she felt that it wouldn't be easy to pry the truth out of their mouths. However, she blinked and clapped her hands. She had an idea. Sima Jun was sitting under the tree in a daze when she heard a noise and turned her head. She saw Chu Qingyan swaggering in front of her, followed by Jean Exon, who was carrying a jar of wine. What? Have you thought it through? Do you want to have a drink with me? Sima Jun raised her brows and asked. Chu Qingyan waved her hand and Jean Exon put down the wine jar and retreated. Sima Jun took it without hesitation. She removed the stopper and the fragrance of the wine wafted out. She smacked her lips. It's been aged for 10 years. Good wine. Where did you get it? The last time we entered the city, I secretly hid a jar. I was afraid that an alcoholic like you would finish it in one go. I had to be careful. Chu Qingyan also sat down and glanced at her. Sima Jun heard her cautious tone and snorted. Then why did you take it out now? Because I'm a soft-hearted person. I can't bear to see someone grieving over the passing of spring and the passing of autumn. Chu Qingyan sighed. It was rare for Sima Jun to be rendered speechless by her. She poured a mouthful of wine into her mouth and the spicy taste entered her throat. She pursed her lips and said to Chu Qingyan, "This wine is very strong. Don't drink it. If someone sneaks up on you at night, at least one of us has to be sober." Chu Qingyan looked at her in surprise. Don't get drunk. Otherwise, when your enemy comes, I won't be able to protect you. Sima Jun smiled. My life is in your hands. You have to protect it well. With that, Sima Jun raised her head and poured the wine down her throat again. One mouthful after another, she didn't stop. Chu Qingyan saw that she was drinking in such a hurry and regretted taking the wine out. She wanted to persuade her not to drink, but when the words were about to come out of her mouth, she felt a faint layer of invisible loneliness shrouding her body. She couldn't say anything. Although it was said that drowning one's sorrows in alcohol made one even more sorrowful, Chu Qingyan thought that if she got drunk tonight and woke up tomorrow, she would be that high-spirited Sima Jun who always quarreled with her. That would be great. Hence, Chu Qingyan leaned against the tree trunk and watched her finish the wine. She drank too quickly. Even if she was a wine immortal, she couldn't withstand the strength of the wine. Very soon, Sima Jun was drunk. She hugged the wine jar and revealed a sorrowful expression that she had never shown before. "Little girl, I miss home." Chu Qingyan was paying close attention to the surroundings. When she suddenly heard this sentence, she was puzzled. Thinking that she was hearing things, she lowered her head to look at Sima Jun. She saw that her eyes were hazy and unfocused. One look and she knew that she was drunk. At this moment, Sima Jun burped and smiled. Her red lips were like flames, flamboyant and strong. It was so beautiful that it took one's breath away. But if one ignored the desolation in her smile, it would be even more pleasing to the eye. "I've been here for almost 20 years. I want to go back." Once the desolate voice came out, it was blown away by the night wind. Chu Qingyan frowned slightly. She thought that Sima Jun was drunk and talking nonsense. She reached out to help her up. But when she was about to touch her arm, she turned her hand to the flexible sword at her waist. Sima Jun's crow mouth was right. There was a sneak attack tonight. Chapter 8:20. Chu Qingyan pulled out her sword and turned around. As expected, there were dozens of men in black standing behind her. She had placed all her attention on Sima Jun earlier and only noticed them when they were so close to her. These people came aggressively, as if they had turned out in full force. The black mass of people surrounded the entire forest. "Who are you?" Chu Qingyan calmly looked at one of the men who was not dressed in black. He was about 30 years old, and his looks were ordinary. However, there was a sinister look in his eyes that could not be ignored. This man must be the leader. That person stood out and swept a glance at the drunk Sima Jun. His eyes flashed as if he was trying to determine if she was really drunk or just faking it. He said to Chu Qingyan in an unfriendly tone, "You've got guts. You're already here. What's the use of me panicking?" Chu Qingyan shrugged. "Young man, don't try to be brave. There's no benefit in doing so. I only want Sima Jun. As long as you hand her over, we won't make things difficult for you." That person spoke arrogantly, completely disregarding Chu Qingyan. He was willing to speak so much with her only because he wanted to end the battle quickly and not waste manpower. At this time, the sound of weapons clashing could be heard from afar. Jin Exin and Tan Ing quickly ran over. "Master, our people have been entangled." Jin Exin pointed his sword at the men in black warily as he whispered to his master. Tan Ing pointed at the leader and said angrily, "Xing Ming, you're ungrateful. If not for Master saving you back then, would you still be able to act like a tyrant here?" Xing Ming laughed. "Tan Ing, what's the use of saying all this? Wait till I control the entire Lan Manor and strengthen it. That will be the best repayment to the Manor Lord." To think that he could say such shameless words. Chu Qingyan swept a glance at these people and couldn't help but frown. There were at least 100 of them. Even if her people were skilled in martial arts and could fight 1 against 10, they wouldn't be able to defeat them. If Sima Jun was sober, they might be able to fight their way out if they joined forces. Unfortunately, if she had known earlier, she wouldn't have taken out the wine. Unfortunately, it was too late to say anything now. She could only fight head-on. "Hand over the Manor Lord, and I can let you all go." Xing Ming raised his hand and the people behind him all took out their weapons. The blades were pointed at the moon, illuminating the dark forest. These people were not easy to fool. They all had imposing auras. If they didn't, there would be a fierce battle. Tan Ing, who was at the side, looked at Chu Qingyan worriedly. She was afraid that Chu Qingyan would really hand over her master. However, in this situation, she was in a dilemma. Perhaps it was because victory was already in his hands, Xing Ming did not put the immature brat in front of him in his eyes. Thus, he answered with some patience. "You betrayed your master, that's disloyalty. You repaid kindness with enmity, that's unrighteousness. A disloyal and unrighteous person like you should be despised by the world. If I, Chu Yen, were to submit to you today, wouldn't I be worse than you?" Chu Qingyan looked at him fearlessly, as if she didn't care about his men at all. Xing Ming was shocked by Chu Qingyan's imposing aura. When he regained his senses, he looked at her in anger. What a shameless brat. Today, I will let you know what it means to stroke a tiger's whiskers. Men, wait. Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop him. Xing Ming smiled proudly. What? Scared? Chu Qingyan laughed softly. The Blue Manor is also a famous manor. There should be many heroes and heroes under it. Xing Ming, if you win today because you have more people on your side, we have nothing to say. However, if word gets out that you are a bully, an ingrate, and a usurper, do you think you can still hold your position in the Blue Manor? Xing Ming's face turned ugly. Chu Qingyan had stepped on his sore spot. The reason why he personally came here today to capture the Manor Lord was so that he wouldn't give others an excuse to force her to abdicate. Then what do you want? Xing Ming said fiercely. You want me to hand over Sima Manor Lord? That's impossible. But if one of you can defeat me and make me admit defeat, then I will surrender. How about it? Chu Qingyan said indifferently. Xing Ming laughed when he heard this. As expected, a fledgling isn't afraid of tigers. With your skinny arms and legs, can you beat me, Ziying? At this moment, one of Xing Ming's subordinates reminded him, Hall Master, be careful of traps. Chu Qingyan said sarcastically, we can't escape even if we have wings. What are you afraid of? I didn't think that your subordinates are all cowards. They're not fun at all. When Xing Ming heard this, he felt that he had been humiliated by a junior. He kicked his subordinate and said coldly, All right, then I'll spar with you. As long as you can take 10 moves from me, I'll let you go. All right. Chu Qingyan agreed readily. Tan Ying said worriedly, Master Chu, Xing Ming's martial arts are strong. You must be careful. Chu Qingyan turned around and patted her shoulder. Don't worry, I'll definitely defeat him. Xing Ming laughed contemptuously. Chu Qingyan smiled and said to Tan Ying in a low voice, You said that you've contacted Sima's guards. I'll try my best to stall for time. You find a chance to sneak out and see if you're lucky enough to meet them. Tan Ying's eyes brightened. When she received the news yesterday, Yu Ying was already on his way. Logically speaking, the earliest he could arrive was tonight. She glanced at Xing Ming and agreed. Chu Qingyan patted her shoulder and gave Jean Xian a look. Jean Xian nodded knowingly. At this moment, Xing Ming had already waved his hand to get his subordinates to make way for her. Chu Qingyan slowly walked to the center of the stage. Her eyes looked like they were smiling. This Xing Ming kept calling her a junior, but in the end he was still worried about her. Most importantly, he could not allow himself to be careless. Xing Ming looked coldly at Chu Qingyan. Even if it was spread that he was bullying the weak, he would kill this arrogant brat and control the Manor Lord. Chu Qingyan held the sword in her hand and cupped her hands towards Xing Ming. Please. Xing Ming smiled. If you have any last words, say them now. I'm afraid you won't have time to say them later. Someone told my fortune that I'll live to 100 years old. Thank you for your concern. Chu Qingyan said casually. Seeing her like this, Xing Ming was even more certain that she was an idiot who only knew how to talk big. He didn't take her seriously at all. After the first exchange, Xing Ming was shocked. This inner strength, Chu Qingyan smiled and didn't give him a chance to react. She attacked again and Xing Ming was overwhelmed. After exchanging 3 blows, Xing Ming was already on the losing side. For you, Xing Ming was forced to take a step back and looked at her with a serious expression. Is it important who I am? Chu Qingyan stood on the same spot and smiled casually. Xing Ming had to treat her seriously. Just as he was about to attack again, he heard someone shout, They're here. Tan Ying brought reinforcements? So fast? Everyone turned to look in the direction of the shout. Chu Qingyan's hand paused, and she turned to look in another direction as if she had sensed something. She met a pair of familiar eyes. Chapter 821. Chu Qingyan didn't expect him to appear here and was more shocked than pleasantly surprised. It was at this moment that Jean Xian, who was by her side, shielded her and brought her to the other side. She inexplicably turned to the other side, and when she saw a tongue of fire rapidly approaching from the distance, she realized that the people she had just spoken of were those people. For some reason, she felt a little guilty and didn't dare to turn back in the direction she was looking at. She could only focus on the people in front of her. The group of people holding torches was led by an extremely young and handsome man. He was dressed in a silver-white robe and held the reins as he urged his horse towards them. Chu Qingyan first put down the psychological impact of the ice cubes suddenly descending from the sky and frowned slightly. She didn't know if these people were friends or foes. If they were enemies, then looking at the number of people they brought, they probably wouldn't be able to escape even if they had wings. At this moment, Xing Ming spoke in shock and helped her resolve her doubts. Ji Linyang? Why is he here? This terrified voice caused Chu Qingyan's eyes to light up slightly. Wasn't this the pitiful man whom Sima Jun had abandoned after having sex with him? But she was a little puzzled. According to Tan Ying, they had contacted the guards. Why did Ji Linyang bring people over first? But no matter who it was fine as long as they weren't friends or foes. Although Ji Linyang and the others seemed to be close, there was still some distance before they arrived. Chu Qingyan had been wary of Xing Ming and indeed wanted to make the first move. So you were stalling for time? Xing Ming's face was filled with anger from being deceived. He raised his hand and his subordinates behind him drew their weapons and approached Chu Qingyan. Chu Qingyan chuckled. Xing Ming, you have to keep your word. You said that I would definitely lose within 10 moves. Why did you change your mind after just 3 moves? Could it be that you know you can't beat me so you want to bully me with numbers? As she spoke, Chu Qingyan glanced at the people behind Xing Ming. Her tone was full of mockery. Although he knew that Chu Qingyan was trying to provoke him, how could he, a high and mighty person, be bullied by this little brat again and again? How could he swallow this anger? He was so angry that he laughed. All right, I'll deal with this brat. The rest of you, take the Manor Lord back. The wind is strong here, be careful not to let the Manor Lord catch a cold. Chu Qingyan frowned. She didn't know if Ji Linyang and the others could arrive if she bought more time. She knew that the ice cube was here. And, over my dead body, over my dead body, over. When Su Yi and the others saw that the reinforcements had arrived, they didn't continue to fight. Each of them withdrew from the battle and used their qing gong to rush towards their masters. Soon, they surrounded them and protected them in a circle. You think too highly of yourself. Xing Ming scoffed. He knew that if he delayed any longer, Ji Linyang's men would arrive. He sent half of his men to stop Ji Linyang while the rest attacked Chu Qingyan and the others. Chu Qingyan gestured for them to protect Sima Jun while she fought Xing Ming alone with her sword. After the previous exchange, Xing Ming knew that this brat who came out of nowhere was not as easy to fool as he appeared. His martial arts might even be better than his. Xing Ming had been in the pugilistic world for so many years and had met countless experts. However, other than his Manor Lord, there was only this person in front of him who was so young. He didn't dare to let his guard down. He raised his internal energy to 100% and used all his skills in every move. Chu Qingyan looked at the sinister Xing Ming. As she exchanged blows with him, she giggled and said, "Just now, you said that you would defeat me within 10 moves. I wonder who it will be in the end?" With that, she stopped hiding her strength because she heard the neighing of horses. Since the reinforcements had arrived, there was no need for her to delay any longer. Chu Qingyan suddenly changed her attacks. Every move was swift and fierce, unlike the scattered attacks from before. Xing Ming had no way of defending himself and retreated continuously. The 10th move. As soon as the elegant voice sounded, Xing Ming was hit by Chu Qingyan's palm. He spat out blood and retreated. Xing Ming was caught by his subordinates behind him. When he looked up, he saw Chu Qingyan holding her sword with one hand behind her back. She smiled brightly. "Thank you for letting me win." Today's plan had been foiled by this person again and again. Xing Ming was so angry that he lost all reason. "Archers, get ready. Fire." The subordinate who had warned Xing Ming to be careful said anxiously, "Hall Master, the Manor Lord is still in their hands. If we fire, we'll cut the crap. I want none of them alive." Xing Ming's eyes were bloodshot as he gave the order viciously. He had wanted to keep Sima Jun alive and force her to hand over all the secrets of Lan Manor. However, Ji Linyang was almost here. If Sima Jun was with him, then all his years of planning would go to waste. As long as Sima Jun was dead, he would be in power. So what if he didn't have the right to do so? Anyone who stood in his way would die. Soon, the archers aimed their bows at Chu Qingyan and the others and fired. Chu Qingyan didn't expect them to have such a trick up their sleeves. Seeing the flashing fire arrows, her face darkened and she immediately ordered everyone to retreat. Soon, the flaming arrows shot towards Chu Qingyan and the others. Jin Exen, protect Sima. Chu Qingyan gave the order. With a grim face, she helped Su Yi and the others fend off the arrows. The first batch of arrows fell. Although they didn't hurt Chu Qingyan and the others, because they were in the forest, the arrows flew towards the withered grass and trees and were quickly set ablaze. Ji Linyang and the others were already attacking the perimeter. They would arrive here soon. However, the raging flames illuminated Xing Ming's bloodthirsty and delighted smile. Chu Qingyan's heart was already filled with anger. Now that the flames had ignited, she gritted her teeth and shouted angrily to the other side, "Why aren't you coming over to help?" Xing Ming and the others didn't expect Chu Qingyan to speak so angrily, and it didn't seem like she was talking to anyone else. Xing Ming frowned. He was about to speak when he heard a calm and languid voice ring out in the night. "I thought that you would refuse to speak." Chu Qingyan blushed slightly. If not for the fear that the arrows had no eyes and would hurt Sima Jun, she really didn't want him to show himself. The voice just now instilled fear in Xing Ming, as if he was born to submit to a superior. He couldn't help but gain the upper hand by showing his strength. "Which rascal is hiding in the dark? Why aren't you coming out? Who do you think you are?" The indifferent voice was full of mockery. Although Chu Qingyan was still in a cold war with him, she couldn't help but chuckle when she heard his words. After being belittled again and again tonight, Xing Ming felt embarrassed. He waved his hand and gave the order for the second wave of fire to begin. Chu Qingyan wanted to defend herself with her sword, but she suddenly smelled a familiar ink scent. Then, her sword was in someone's other hand, and she, cough cough, was in someone's arms. "You dare to run away from home? You've got guts." Chu Qingyan watched as a certain someone held her sword and blocked the arrows with ease. She couldn't help but shrink into his arms, muttering softly, "It's all because you spoiled her." With that, the hand holding her suddenly withdrew. Chu Qingyan kept quiet and only dared to bare her teeth at him with her back facing him. Chapter 8:22. When Xiao Su appeared, Hualing and the others impatiently entered the fray with their swords. Just now, when they saw these people bullying their little princess, Hualing and Xiao Lai-Chi couldn't hold back their temper and wanted to go all out. However, their master stopped them and didn't let them act rashly. They couldn't help but hold back their anger. Now they could finally act boldly and decisively. The swords and sabers in their hands danced with vigor. When Xing Ming saw Xiao Su suddenly appear, his heart shook. He was wearing a mask, but from his figure and movements, he was not someone to be offended. But the arrow was already knocked and had to be released. Wave after wave of arrows flew through the air, but they were quickly repelled by their iron barrel-like defense. Xing Ming and the others immediately scrambled to block the arrows that changed directions. They were in a sorry state. Soon, Ji Linyang's people were nearing the inner circle. Seeing Ji Linyang appear, Xing Ming was shocked. "My people? What do you think?" With a wave of his hand, Ji Lin's men quickly surrounded Xing Ming. In an instant, they were evenly matched in terms of numbers. But Xing Ming knew that his people were not a match for them. Adding on the fact that Xiao Su's group had appeared out of nowhere, Xing Ming lost half of his wings. He angrily and unwillingly said to Ji Linyang and Chu Qin, "Just you wait. There will be a day when I will get my revenge." As he spoke, he ordered his subordinates to cover their retreat. Because they had arrows, Xing Ming took the chance to ride his horse and escape under the cover of his subordinates. Ji Linyang looked in the direction that Xing Ming left in. He didn't say anything. A portion of his people had already chased out. The rest spread out to guard the surroundings and be on guard against a sneak attack. "Ji Zhu, are we letting that bastard Xing Ming escape?" Tan Ning asked in confusion as she supported Shan Guang. The guards have already ambushed Xing Ming's group on their way back. We don't need to chase. After answering, Ji Linyang scanned his surroundings, skipping past Chu Qingyan, Xiao Su, and the others until his eyes landed on the white figure under the tree. His pupils shrank and he quickly walked up to her. When he got closer, he found her quietly leaning against the tree trunk. The reprimand in his throat disappeared in an instant. He quickly crouched down, his hand trembling uncontrollably as he tried to check her breathing. Chu Qingyan was still in Xiao Su's arms. Now that everything had settled down, she finally snapped out of her daze and pushed him away uncomfortably. Rubbing her nose, she turned to look at Ji Linyang, the man who had appeared as if he had stolen the moonlight. However, his calm expression seemed to have retracted all of his brilliance. He was reserved and steady. However, Chu Qingyan noticed that after Xing Ming escaped, the man who remained calm and collected only had eyes for Sima Jun. She couldn't help but pay more attention to such an outstanding man. When she saw Ji Linyang raise his trembling hand to check Sima Jun's breathing, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. Ji Linyang had just sensed Sima Jun's long breathing and knew that she was fine. He had just heaved a sigh of relief when he heard the laughter. He couldn't help but turn sideways to look at Chu Qingyan. Don't worry, she's just drunk. She dares to get drunk at a time like this. I really have to hand it to her. Knowing that he was the man whom Sima Jun had let down, Chu Qingyan felt a little more sympathy for him and couldn't help but explain. Tan Ning immediately explained, Master Ji, this is... Ji Linyang raised his hand to stop Tan Ning and nodded politely but distantly to Chu Qingyan. This humble one knows that this is young Master Chu Qingyan. This humble one is very grateful to young Master for saving Junyao. This humble one will definitely bring Junyao to visit and thank you in the future. Was he planning to keep her at arm's length? And from this person's tone, it seemed a little stiff. Chu Qingyan blinked. She was the one who had saved Sima Jun, so why did he seem so eager to draw the line between them? How thought-provoking. When Tan Ning saw Chu Qingyan's puzzled expression, she thought that it was because she didn't understand how to address her. She couldn't help but smile and say, My mistress has a nickname, Junyao. Chu Qingyan nodded, then said to Ji Linyang, Sima Jun and I hit it off at first sight. I was just helping her out of her predicament. It's not worth mentioning. She didn't know if it was her imagination, but she felt that when she said, hit it off at first sight, Ji Linyang's expression was a little strange. Chu Qingyan felt a little strange, but she suppressed it and didn't think too much about it. At this moment, Ji Linyang had already bent down to carry the drunk Sima Jun in his arms, then turned to say to Chu Qingyan, No matter what, I still have to thank young Master Chu for taking care of Junyao during this period. We'll pay you a visit when we're done here. Goodbye. With that, Ji Linyang turned to leave. Chu Qingyan's eyelids twitched. Was this the prelude to parting ways with her? She took a step forward and blocked Ji Linyang's way. Her expression changed from warm to suspicious. Young Master Ji, where are you taking Sima? Ji Linyang smiled faintly. I'm taking her back to the Blue Manor. I won't delay you any longer. I'll take my leave first. How could Chu Qingyan allow this person to come and go as he pleased? She took Sima Jun away in the blink of an eye. Although I'm very grateful for your help, before Sima wakes up, I can't just let anyone take her away. I was the one who escorted her here, so I should protect her well. I ask young Master Ji not to make things difficult for us. Ji Linyang couldn't help but narrow his eyes at her. He had seen this handsome youth when he arrived here earlier. He had received news that Junyao was close to this youth, and he had been displeased. When he wasn't around, he had been fooling around with other girls. When he thought of this, he couldn't help but want to beat this person up. Unfortunately, this person had saved Junyao's life. If not for this person's protection, he probably wouldn't have been able to see Junyao again. Chu Qingyan naturally didn't know why this person's aura had suddenly changed, and her expression turned solemn. At this moment, Xiao Su, who had been standing silently at the side, walked to her side and pulled her into his arms. Chu Qingyan hadn't expected him to intervene. When Ji Linyang saw Xiao Su's actions, he looked at Chu Qingyan in surprise. My wife is worried about Miss Sima. Why don't young Master Ji wait for Miss Sima to wake up before leaving? Xiao Su said calmly. As a man, how could Xiao Su not understand why Ji Linyang was wary of the little fellow? He was just jealous. As a smart person, Ji Linyang immediately understood Xiao Su's words. He glanced at Chu Qingyan, and his gaze softened. So Chu Qingyan was a girl. We can't stay here for long. Let's find another quiet place to settle down. Ji Linyang smiled at Chu Qingyan, his expression much gentler. Chu Qingyan felt that Ji Linyang's expression changed really quickly. But looking at the flames in the sky, she guessed that they would all be roasted pigs in a while. She nodded in agreement. But before she left, she poked the person beside her. Who's your wife? Don't randomly acknowledge her. Xiao Su tightened his arms and said coldly, Don't move. Change back into female clothes later. Chu Qingyan was baffled. How did they talk about men's clothes? But under his coercion, Chu Qingyan didn't dare to refute him on the surface, and could only curse him in her heart. Stingy. She wouldn't forgive him so easily this time. Chapter 8:23. The night was very long. Even after a fierce battle, Chu Qingyan couldn't fall asleep for some reason. Her eyes couldn't help but be attracted by the scene in front of her. Ji Linyang found another safe place to rest. The carriage had been burned down by the fiery arrows, and even the tent that Chu Qingyan had brought from Jiangnan had been burned down as well. Ji Linyang hugged Sima Jun and half reclined under a tree, closing his eyes to rest. She was used to Sima Jun's carefree appearance. Now, she also had the gentle beauty of a little bird leaning on a man. The two white figures snuggled together. Under the light of the fire, they looked very gentle and harmonious. Chu Qingyan couldn't help but recall the desolation in Sima Jun's eyes whenever he mentioned Ji Linyang. She found it strange. From the looks of it, it was obvious that the two of them had each other in their hearts. Why were things like this? At this moment, a piece of clothing covered her shoulders. She was slightly surprised, but before she could turn around to look, the voice had already reached her. Aren't your eyes sore after looking for so long? It was a sour voice. Chu Qingyan didn't need to turn around to know who it was. She snorted. My eyes are on my body. I can look at whoever I want. It's none of your business. It was rare for Chu Qingyan to be so strong-willed. Although she regretted it, she could only continue to be strong-willed. Xiao Su walked in front of her and put his hands on her shoulders. He lowered his head and narrowed his eyes dangerously. You really like that pretty boy? Pretty boy? Chu Qingyan choked on her own saliva. Ji Linyang was a handsome and talented man who could stand shoulder to shoulder with the most handsome men in the Jianghu. How did he become a pretty boy in the mouth of this iceberg? You can't call him a pretty boy just because he's dressed in white. You're also dressed in black. Do people call you Big Black Face? Chu Qingyan couldn't help but mutter. He was too abnormal today. You're still speaking up for him. Xiao Su said coldly, his face darkening. Chu Qingyan was startled by his expression and felt wronged. However, she knew that she couldn't say anything at this time. She muttered, all right, let's not talk about this anymore. Go to sleep and go back as soon as possible. The Fu can't do without you. What about you? Xiao Su understood the meaning behind her words and frowned. Chu Qingyan knew that if she didn't say it now, she would have to say it tomorrow morning. She braced herself and said, I promised Sima that I would accompany her to take back what belongs to her. I can't go back on my word. In the end, you still want to run away from home? Xiao Su suppressed the anger and disappointment that had just surged up. His fingers tightened as he asked word by word. Chu Qingyan felt a pain in her shoulder, but she stubbornly refused to cry out. She raised her head and met his gaze. Pursing her lips, she said, I didn't run away from home. I just want to help Sima. Is that so? Xiao Su chuckled, full of disbelief. Before you leave, you're not even willing to let someone inform you. Chu Qingyan's face was slightly bitter. Isn't this too rushed? Xiao Su snorted. Ayan, are you sure you're telling the truth? Chu Qingyan heard this and her heart was bitter. Could it be that she still had to tell him that she was wavering because of Liang Dongjing's provocation? She clearly knew that her words couldn't be trusted, but she didn't know why she couldn't help it. Xiao Su saw that she didn't say a word and his intention of giving her time to explain faded. His anger rose. Ayan, do you even care about me? This question made Chu Qingyan's eyes heat up. She wanted to say something, but she unconsciously bit her lip and allowed the pressure on her shoulder to increase. After a while, Xiao Su seemed like he couldn't wait any longer. He let go of her hand and took a step back. His face was as dark as water. Ayan, you really are. He did not finish his words as he flicked his sleeves and left. Chu Qingyan stared blankly as his back slowly left her line of sight. That body that wasn't afraid of anything seemed to be soaked in ink at this time, so sad that it couldn't be dissolved. Her heart suddenly twisted. She wanted to follow him, but she didn't know what to say. She could only watch as he left. Hualing couldn't keep watching. He walked in front of Chu Qingyan and secretly scolded, "Little Princess Fei, do you know how Master got here? He only rested for 2 to 4 hours every day. Even after eliminating the bandits, he didn't want to waste time looking for you. He traveled through wind and rain. You ate, drank, and slept well, but Master was worried day and night that you couldn't eat, drink, or sleep well. Once he saw that you were safe, he was able to put down all his worries. However, you just said so many hurtful words. Is it appropriate?" Chu Qingyan didn't think that he had come this far and couldn't help feeling guilty. Hualing wanted to say something else, but he was grabbed by Turin who had rushed over. Hualing was startled by Turin's glare. He was actually scolding the little princess. If Master knew. He finally came back to his senses and scratched his head. He said to Chu Qingyan, "Little Princess Fei, this subordinate is the fastest. Don't take it to heart." After saying this, he immediately ran off to patrol. Turin turned to look at the silent Chu Qingyan. He hesitated a bit before saying, "Little Princess Fei, this subordinate doesn't know if it's appropriate to say something?" Chu Qingyan thought that the Big Ice Cube's 2 trusted subordinates had rushed over to fight for him. She couldn't help but be amused. She nodded and said, "Since you've said this, then say it." Turin said, "Little Princess Fei, Master has rarely experienced familial warmth since he was young. He has always been in an environment of mutual deception. The place he usually interacts with the most is the military camp, so it has caused him to bury everything in his heart and not be good with words. In Master's eyes, the most direct thing is action. As long as he recognizes a person, he will wholeheartedly devote himself to her. Sweet words are only used to coax people. Only by doing is the most practical." Chu Qingyan didn't know that Turin would say something like this. Wasn't he going to scold her? How did it turn into promoting his master? "Turin, I know what you're saying, but sometimes I can't help it." She almost blurted out her thoughts to Turin, but she stopped herself in the end. "Little Princess Fei, we outsiders can clearly see Master's feelings for you. I hope you can feel it with your heart. This subordinate has crossed the line." Turin finished speaking and bowed before turning to leave. Chu Qingyan's lips curled. Everyone was saying this, but if he didn't say it, how would she know? But her heart was still shocked by their words. At this time, she had an impulse to find the culprit. At this time, before Chu Qingyan could take a step, she saw a person riding a horse towards them. After dismounting, he hurriedly ran towards Ji Linyang. Chu Qingyan's heart thumped. Thinking that something important must have happened, she couldn't help walking towards Ji Linyang. Chapter 824. Xiao Su and the others also saw the commotion. Hualing couldn't help but speak up when he saw his master's confused expression. "Master, the young princess consort probably said those words because she was angry. Please don't take it to heart. This prince knows." Xiao Su sighed. He knew that the little fellow had nothing to do with Ji Linyang, but he didn't know why he was so angry that he spoke without thinking. His usual calm and self-control couldn't help but crumble. His gaze involuntarily landed on the person talking to Ji Linyang. A trace of pity and regret that even he didn't notice surfaced in his eyes. Chu Qingyan stood in front of the fire. After the messenger left, she went forward. "What happened?" Seeing that Ji Linyang's expression wasn't too good, Chu Qingyan thought that something must have happened. Xing Ming was ambushed, but he still managed to escape. He's now contacting his remaining accomplices, planning to attack the headquarters of Blue City. Ji Linyang's tone was very grave. Chu Qingyan frowned. Then what do you plan to do now? I want to set out now and try to get to Blue City Manor before Xing Ming arrives. I want to cooperate with the Red Shadow and destroy Xing Ming's group in one fell swoop to prevent future trouble. As he spoke, Ji Linyang couldn't help but look at the person who was still sleeping. His voice was filled with unquestionable determination. Chu Qingyan nodded. That's the only thing we can do now. Ji Linyang retracted his gaze and looked at Chu Qingyan. His tone was slightly apologetic. I've already heard about what happened to you from Tan Ying. Please forgive me if I've offended you before, Miss Chu. After a while, Chu Qingyan finally understood the meaning of his words. She couldn't help but tease him. Can I say that you're jealous of me? Ji Linyang didn't immediately react to such a straightforward question. His face flushed slightly and he couldn't help but cough lightly to avoid it. Previously, the scouts reported that you were a man, so I misunderstood. I'm really sorry. To be able to make such a handsome man reveal such an expression, Chu Qingyan felt that Sima had really profited. Chu Qingyan suddenly thought of something and asked Ji Linyang, Young Master Ji, may I have a word with you? Ji Linyang nodded readily. He turned around and gave Tan Ying a few instructions before leaving with Chu Qingyan. Master, the young princess consort and Ji Linyang have left. Hua Ling pointed at the two disappearing figures in the firelight and exclaimed to the people beside him. Xiao Su calmly glanced at him, then lowered his gaze. Not hearing any response, Hua Ling looked over in confusion. Master? On the side, Turin elbowed Hua Ling. If you don't speak, no one will treat you as a mute. This little princess. Hua Ling opened his mouth, but closed it under his master's cold gaze. Chu Qingyan brought Ji Linyang to a secluded area where they could see the bonfire. It was not too far away. Does Miss Chu have anything you want to say to me? After knowing that Chu Qingyan had saved Jun Yao and the others and spared no effort to help them return to Lan Manor, Ji Linyang treated Chu Qingyan with more sincerity. Chu Qingyan nodded. Young Master Ji, I've heard a little about the matter between you and Sima, but it wasn't complete. I know that Sima let you down at that time and transferred you out of Lan Manor's headquarters, ignoring you. Perhaps I'm saying this because I think I'm interfering in the matter between the two of you, but I truly think of Sima as a good sister, so I took the liberty to say these things. When Chu Qingyan opened her mouth to say these words, Ji Linyang looked at her with an unreadable expression, as if he was trying to figure out her motives. It's fine, you're Jun Yao's good friend. Chu Qingyan sensed his probing, but didn't think too much about it and continued, I haven't known Sima for long, but I know that there's a kind of fate in this world called congenial affinity. We hit it off at first sight. She's bold and meticulous, her way of thinking shocking the world, but her heart is firm and she values relationships. I don't believe that she would do such a thing. I think there must be a misunderstanding here. Perhaps it was because she had been teasing Sima Jun recently, so she often said the words abandon after seducing. When she said it just now, she didn't have any scruples and just blurted it out. She couldn't help but feel a little regretful. But seeing Ji Linyang's expression, it didn't seem like he cared. Chu Qingyan sighed in relief. Ji Linyang was silent for a moment, then said faintly, Jun Yao and I have known each other for 10 years. When we first met, we were at loggerheads and refused to give in to each other. We made a bet that whoever lost would agree to one condition of the other. Chu Qingyan didn't expect them to have known each other so early and couldn't help but guess. You lost in the end? Ji Linyang smiled, an indecipherable emotion in his smile. I've been regarded as a prodigy since I was young, and I boasted that no one could be smarter than me, much less a girl younger than me. But I didn't expect that I would still lose in the end. What was the bet? She believed that with Sima Jun's eccentricity, this person had most likely fallen into her hands. But Chu Qingyan was more curious about the bet. Ji Linyang stood with his hands behind his back, facing the wind. I worked for her for 10 years. The Blue Manor was founded by the two of us. Chu Qingyan suddenly understood. Actually, she should have guessed that with Sima Jun's personality, who offended people so easily, there must be someone behind her to clean up her messes. But who would have thought that once I lost, I would fall in love with her for the rest of my life? Ji Linyang muttered to himself. Chu Qingyan didn't hear him clearly and looked at Ji Linyang in confusion. She's a very strange girl, but unfortunately, she didn't love him. Ji Linyang smiled, as if the person who had just been lonely wasn't him. Miss Chu, do you have anything else to say? Chu Qingyan could tell what he was thinking. She thought about it for a while and said, let's go. Do you know what Sima Jun said when she was drunk tonight? Ji Linyang shook his head. Sima Jun was drunk tonight. Chu Qingyan heard her murmur softly, little young Olive. I was too selfish to let you stay for 10 years. You have a bigger future ahead of you, don't ruin it for me. Chu Qingyan said all these words. When she saw Ji Linyang's shock, her lips curved into a smile. They say that the truth comes out when drunk, but it could also be nonsense. I don't know who this little Yang is, but she loves to give people weird nicknames. Ji Linyang turned his head and looked at the person smacking her lips under the tree. His gaze became as gentle as water, as if he was dreaming. Then Ji Linyang turned back and asked seriously, Miss Chu, aren't you leaving with us? Chu Qingyan was taken aback. How did you know? If you were leaving with us, you wouldn't have come to me to say these words tonight. Ji Linyang's eyes were filled with gratitude towards her. Chu Qingyan sighed softly. These people were all smart, but it was a pity that their EQ was inversely proportional to their IQ. That's right. After seeing you, I feel that you will succeed with or without me, so I won't go with you. I don't want to cause trouble for you. Chu Qingyan smiled. Ji Linyang glanced in the direction of the bonfire and smiled mockingly. It's probably because of that young master? Chu Qingyan followed his gaze. When she saw the handsome figure, she couldn't help but rub her nose in tacit agreement. Miss Chu, we'll meet again. We'll meet again. After sending Ji Linyang and the others off, Chu Qingyan stood in the forest for a moment, thinking about the days she spent with Sima Jun. She was a little distracted. At this moment, a gleaming sword was aimed at her vitals. Chapter 825. Chu Qingyan was startled by the sudden appearance of so many swords and sabers, but her reflexes were quick. She flipped over and stepped on one of the swords, using the momentum to retreat. But Chu Qingyan found that these people seemed to be forcing her into the darkness so that no one would notice her. After she sent Ji Linyang off, she told the people below that she wanted some peace and quiet. She dismissed the people following her, giving these people a chance to attack her. They were coming at her menacingly. Who sent you here? Chu Qingyan coldly asked. What responded to her was the flashing of swords. Chu Qingyan's expression froze. Every move was fatal. Who had this much hatred for her? Although these people's martial arts were not low, it was more than enough for her to deal with them. However, these people were very good at using hidden weapons. They would throw out hidden weapons from time to time which made people angry. She originally wanted to use this fight to vent the anger in her heart, but now she did not want to be entangled with them. She raised her foot and kicked a stone away. The stone hit a tree not far away and quickly caused a large amount of leaves to fall. The commotion here quickly attracted everyone's attention. This is bad, we've been discovered. Brothers, let's end this quickly. Half of the 11 or 12 black-robed men surrounded Chu Qingyan, while the other half stopped fighting and took the opportunity to throw darts and silver needles at Chu Qingyan. The black-clothed people had a tacit understanding. They intentionally delayed her so that she could not deal with those hidden weapons. Just as she tilted her head to avoid 2 darts, another 3 silver needles pierced through the air towards her vital parts. Seeing that she was about to be unable to avoid them, her heart turned cold. It was at this time that a black-clothed figure appeared in front of her. He grabbed her shoulder with one hand and flicked his sleeve with the other, catching the 3 silver needles. Then with a flick, the 3 silver needles flew towards the 3 black-clothed people using hidden weapons. Pooh, pew pew. With 3 pitiful cries, the 3 black-clothed people fell to the ground. Following that, Huo Ling, Jean Exin, and the others immediately attacked the remaining black-clothed men. Very quickly, those black-clothed men were subdued. Xiao Su was about to step forward and interrogate them when he saw the black-clothed men vomiting black blood and falling limply to the ground. Hua Ling immediately checked their breathing. He frowned and said, "Master, they all took poison and committed suicide." Glancing at the men in black, Xiao Su's face turned cold. "These are men of sacrifice." Hua Ling said with a bit of annoyance, "If we had prevented them from committing suicide just now, even if they were death warriors, no matter how hard their mouths were, they wouldn't have been able to resist the interrogation of the fierce cavalry. Forget it. Clean up the corpse and check if there's anything of value." Xiao Su waved his hand and ordered. Everyone obeyed the order and went to work. At this time, Chu Qingyan was still in Xiao Su's embrace. He lowered his head and wanted to scold her for daring to run around by herself in the wilderness, but he saw that her face was a bit pale and slightly dazed. His tone couldn't help but soften. "Scared?" Chu Qingyan pursed her lips and a trace of hesitation flashed in her eyes, but it quickly returned to normal. She raised her head and gave him a fake relaxed smile. "I'm fine." Saying this, she left his embrace and turned to say to him, "I've been busy tonight. I'm going to rest first." But it was clear that Xiao Su was not satisfied with her answer and was even more dissatisfied with her actions. Looking at his empty embrace, Xiao Su's face darkened. He reached out and pulled the person who was about to leave over. Placing his hands on her shoulders, he turned her to face him. "Ain, what's wrong with you?" Chu Qingyan wasn't prepared for his sudden move. She raised her head and met his dark eyes. It was as if there was something in them that couldn't be dissolved, piercing her heart bit by bit. "I'm really fine, Big Ice Cube. Don't think too much." She tugged at the corner of her lips and revealed a smile to him. But when she said this, she felt that his expression had darkened, and the smile on his face froze. "Don't smile. If you don't want to smile, then don't force yourself. It's uglier than crying." Xiao Su mercilessly exposed her. Chu Qingyan's shoulders drooped. As expected, she couldn't hide anything from him. But why couldn't he guess what she was thinking? Seeing her like this, Xiao Su's heart that had been pent up for the past 2 days was now filled to the brim. The hand holding her shoulder tightened bit by bit. Xiao Su's eyes seemed to be brewing a storm. She raised her head in pain, wanting to say something, but was frightened by his expression. "Ain, when will you open your heart to me?" His words of accusation were like 1,000 caddies. Like a thunderstorm, it hit her and drenched her heart and body. A chill slowly seeped into her from the bottom of her feet. Her blood froze and it quickly reached her heart. She suddenly felt her heart fill with exhaustion. "Big Ice Cube, it's not that I don't want to tell you some things, but I'm afraid it'll be hard for you." She closed her eyes and then slowly said, "Those death soldiers just now, I felt that they were a bit familiar. Whether it was their martial arts or their array, they were very similar to the assassins I met in the city when I brought people to the bank to get money. I know that the assassins in the city were sent by your imperial mother. If I tell you that I'm suspicious of the death soldiers tonight, I'm afraid that you won't feel good." Her lips twitched, a mother-in-law wanting her daughter-in-law's life. Speaking of this, isn't it ridiculous? But it really exists. Xiao Su didn't expect her to say this. His fingers couldn't help but loosen. "Ain, those people." Feeling the grip on her shoulders loosen, Chu Qingyan lowered her shoulders and moved away from his hand. Then, she took a step back and looked into his eyes. She tilted her head slightly and smiled. However, there was no smile in her eyes. Instead, it was a self-deprecating smile. "Big Ice Cube, your mother really doesn't like me." Since ancient times, the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law was a form of knowledge. But her mother-in-law's identity was too special. The way she didn't like someone was to make them disappear from this world forever. She knew that she couldn't get along with this kind of mother-in-law. "Ain, it's okay if she doesn't like you. It's fine as long as I care about you." Xiao Su's expression was moved. Seeing her self-deprecating appearance, he wished he could pull her into his arms and knead her into his bones and blood, comforting all of her grievances and uneasiness. When Chu Qingyan heard his words, Especially the last sentence, her heart warmed. She pursed her lips, like a homeless child who finally found a roof to rely on, and buried the words in her heart. Which woman doesn't want to receive the blessings of both sides of the family? I'm the same. It's just that I understand our situation. I know that in the imperial family, receiving family affection is an extravagant hope. I don't ask for her to like me, nor do I ask for her to help us. I just hope that she won't disturb us again. But Big Ice Cube, do you know? When I saw Mama Hong appear in our courtyard, I knew that they would make a move against me one day. When I saw these people today, it wasn't that I wanted to hide it from you on purpose. I just didn't want you to be at odds with your imperial mother because of me. It's not that I don't want to open my heart to you. It's just that you've already gone through too much. I don't want to add to your burden. Her sad and lonely words were so light that it seemed like they would be scattered by the wind. But when they fell into Xiao Su's ears, they were like 1,000-pound stone, shaking him until he was dazed. Then his heart ached to the extreme. Chapter 8:26. I'm sorry. Xiao Su reached out and pulled her back into his embrace. I shouldn't have forced you. I thought you didn't want to believe me and kept everything in your heart. This made me think that I'm not important. Chu Qingyan didn't expect him to apologize to her and didn't expect him to say such words without confidence. She couldn't help but sigh. Then she reached out and wrapped her arms around his waist. She pressed her face against his chest and listened to his strong heartbeat. Every time she listened to his heartbeat, she would feel at ease. Feeling the obedience of the person in his embrace, Xiao Su tightened his arms. He wished he could hide her now so that no one could find her and she would belong to him alone. Ian, why did you run away from home? Why didn't you tell me? Although Xiao Su knew that it wasn't the right time to talk about this, he still said it because he knew that if he didn't solve this problem together, the next time she left without a word, he wouldn't be able to save her every time she was in danger. This feeling of panic, as if his most important treasure was leaving him, he didn't want to experience it a second time. Xiao Su's guess was right. When Chu Qingyan heard this question, her face stiffened. Then she leaned on his shoulder as if nothing had happened and said with a smile, "It's really because of Sima. I'm afraid that the journey will be too dangerous, so I want to accompany him." As soon as she finished speaking, she felt a pain on her cheek. When she looked up, she only had time to see the evil hand retracting. She glared at him in dissatisfaction. Why did he pinch her face for no reason? At this moment, Xiao Su harumphed. "Do you think I can't tell that you're just brushing me off? Then why are you asking me?" Chu Qingyan couldn't help but argue with him. She hadn't thought of how to explain this matter, so she simply continued to bury herself in the sand like an ostrich. Sima Jun was right. She was running away. Xiao Su sighed faintly. He really couldn't do anything to her. He couldn't hit or scold her because he was the one who would feel heartache in the end. Ian, is it because of the two young ladies of the Liang family? As soon as he finished speaking, he clearly felt the body in his arms stiffen, and he knew that his guess was right. Ever since they entered the manor, you've been acting strange. When I asked you, you wouldn't tell me. When you left home, you went to the side courtyard to see Liang Danjing. At that time, I guessed that she must have said something to you. When I went to ask her, I heard her say a lot of unbearable things. Only then did I know how vicious they are. Xiao Su's words surprised Chu Qingyan. After so many years of getting along with each other, she knew that he didn't easily judge women. At this time, hearing his tone of disdain and contempt for Liang Danjing and her sister, she had to say that she was very surprised. However, she was still brooding over what Liang Danjing had said to her before she left. She let out a light sigh and placed her hands on his chest. With a little strength, she left his embrace once again. She felt that when talking about serious matters, she had to keep a certain distance to show that she was serious. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would not be able to continue the conversation. This matter was a knot in her heart. He had always wanted an answer, so she would be honest with him. She had left Jiangnan to give herself time to think things through. She knew that she should believe him, but she was afraid that the result would be something she could not accept. Or perhaps, She didn't want to face the gulf between them. Seeing the person in his arms leave again, Xiao Su wanted to pull her again, but when he saw her rare serious and heavy expression, he couldn't help but slowly close his fingers and take back his hand. His gaze was tightly locked on her body, afraid that she would disappear in the blink of an eye. Big Ice Cube, do you know why the Empress suddenly sent the two young ladies of the Liang family? Chu Qingyan looked into his eyes and asked. Xiao Su nodded. Chu Qingyan's eyes dimmed slightly, but they quickly recovered. She hesitated for a moment and then seemed to gather her courage to ask, "Then do you plan to follow the Empress' arrangements?" Xiao Su seemed to understand why she had been acting strangely during this period of time. His gaze couldn't help but soften a little. "How can I do as Imperial Mother wishes? I already have a fiancé. In this lifetime, I only have you, and that's enough. How can others compare to you?" Like a person waiting to be sentenced suddenly being told that she was not guilty, she looked into a pair of warm eyes. Chu Qingyan felt like her entire body was enveloped by a warm light again. The coldness gradually dissipated, but she would not let him off so easily. "Then why did you let them stay? Don't you know that this action is tacitly acknowledging their status?" Xiao Su finally realized that he had acted a bit arbitrarily. He explained, "Letting them stay was just to reassure Muhu on the surface. Otherwise, if I refused, she would definitely think of a way to send someone else over. Rather than that, it would be better to settle things once and for all and have them stay in the Fu as guests. When the time is right, I will send them back. When they get married, I will use your name to add to their dowry. It's a pity that too many things happened when they entered the Fu. I didn't have the time to take care of them. Also, because you were injured and were at odds with me, I didn't have the mind to talk to you about these things. In the end, I was too blindly confident and thought that you would understand my meaning. This matter was not handled properly. I apologize." When he said this, Xiao Su's mood was very happy. Because he knew that the little fellow was jealous and had found the reason to be at odds, he was also relieved. Chu Qingyan didn't think that he had this plan and couldn't help but feel that she was thinking too much. But there was still a knot in her heart. "That night, why did you go to her appointment? When she threw herself into your arms, I saw that you were enjoying it very much." Xiao Su felt that he was very wronged. "I went to the appointment just to give her a wake-up call and let her know her place. When she fell, I didn't even touch her. You know that other than you, I don't let anyone get close to me." Hearing this, Chu Qingyan also felt at ease. She knew that he disdained to lie. Especially when she heard the last sentence, the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl up slightly. "And when you left home, I already had them sent back to the capital." Xiao Su saw the smile on her lips and couldn't help but curl up the corners of his mouth. "You sent them all away? Aren't you afraid that your Muhu Empress will blame you?" Although this result made her very surprised and happy, when she thought of the consequences, she couldn't help but worry. "Compared to offending Muhu Empress, I'm even more unwilling to let you suffer grievances. When I heard what they said, I even had the heart to kill them. But I didn't want Muhu Empress to put this debt on you, so I had them scram back to the capital." Xiao Su recalled the words of Liang Danjing and her sister, and his tone couldn't help but be tinged with anger. After he finished speaking, he saw her bright red cheeks and his heart itched. He took a step forward, wanting to get closer to her. "Are you satisfied with my explanation?" "Stop." Chu Qingyan raised her hand to stop him from getting closer and righteously said, "I still have one more question." Xiao Su felt a headache coming on. Why was it so difficult to get close to his wife? Chapter 827. Alright, ask away. Tonight, he would solve all the problems in her heart and not drag things out, so that she wouldn't run away from home again and again. This time, Chu Qingyan knew the answer to the question she had been struggling with, and her heart relaxed a lot. The following question was actually about the secret she had buried in her heart for the past few years, but whether the answer he gave was the one she wanted was not very important, but today she had to get it out. She raised her head, and there was a faint smile in her eyes, but her expression was very serious. Xiao Su couldn't help but put away his smile, and his face became serious. She didn't look at him but walked a few steps to the side, looking at the endless darkness before dawn. Her voice was ethereal but it had substance. Big ice block. Marriages are all about matching social status so that we can help each other in the future. Although I don't like Liang Danjing, some of what she said is right. If there comes a day when the situation forces you two brothers to draw your swords against each other, and the court is in turmoil, having a powerful relative can help you overcome difficulties and defeat 6 generals until the final victory. But my family is poor, and I have no soldiers or power, so I won't be of help to you, and will instead be a burden to you. Do you still insist on having me like this? She turned around and looked at him, her eyes bright, but there was a look that didn't match her age. Her eyes made Xiao Su feel an inexplicable sense of pity. I said that I will always be by your side, and I won't let you suffer any grievances. In this life, there will only be you. And what are you afraid of? Chu Qingyan seemed to be touched by something, and her eyes became hot. She forced herself to face the fear in her heart. I know that what you said is true. However, the affairs of the world are unpredictable. If there comes a day when you are in deep danger, will you regret the choice you made back then? If it weren't for me, would you be able to walk on many things more easily? At this point, Chu Qingyan turned to the side, lowered her head, and said in a low voice, "Sorry, it's not that I don't believe you, but I'm afraid of burdening you." Towards the end, her voice became softer and softer. She had clearly mustered up her courage, but now she no longer had the strength to continue speaking. Xiao Su felt that what she was thinking was inexplicable and impossible. He really wanted to open her head and see what was inside. Xiao Su, who was angry with her, didn't want to see her fall into a dead end. He stepped forward and suddenly turned her body, wanting to teach her a lesson. But when he saw the tears in her eyes that refused to fall, his heart melted into a puddle of water. All right, don't cry. Have you ever seen me regret my decisions? She didn't want to show her weak side in front of him, but when he told her not to cry, she couldn't help but cry. It was really rare to see her cry. Xiao Su, like before, raised his hand in a fluster to wipe the tears from the corner of her eyes. But when his fingers came into contact with those warm tears, a strong sense of pity welled up in his heart. He wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes. Those tears were like the rising tide of a river. Wave after wave, they didn't stop flowing. Not only did they not stop, they even had the tendency to surge. Xiao Su helplessly and pitifully sighed. His fingers caressed her cheeks. The soft and elastic feeling moved his heart. His fingers moved to her chin and gently lifted it up. Then he leaned over and kissed the corner of her eyes. His heart ached and he kissed her tears away. The warm kiss fell on her face, causing Chu Qingyan's heart to collapse. She said in a hoarse voice, "Big ice cube, no one can predict the future. Although we all say that we should live in the present, I'm still afraid. Since I was young, I didn't want to be a burden to others. It's not that I don't believe in you, but I don't have confidence in myself." The person she had been longing for was right in front of her. Chu Qingyan could no longer suppress the words buried in her heart. Xiao Su wanted very much to hold her in his arms, but he knew that he had to listen to these words. Perhaps the little fellow would only say these words to him today. "Go on, I'm listening." Tears gushed out again. What she received was an even more tender kiss. Chu Qingyan stared at him in a daze. Then she said slowly, word by word, "Big ice cube, when we're in love, all we hear are sweet words, longing for the future, and unswerving vows. But some people say that marriage is the grave of love. No matter how deep the feelings are, they can't compare to the daily necessities. Time will wear away love. At that time, there will only be mutual hatred left. I'm afraid that I won't be able to accept such an ending." Xiao Su knew that the little fellow had self-doubt and uncertainty about the future because of this series of twists and turns. She left Jiangnen not necessarily because of Liang Danjing's words, but because she wanted to reconsider their relationship. His heart ached, not for himself, but for the person in front of him. He wanted to fiercely scold her to wake her up. Everything was not what she thought. But when he saw her red eyes, all his anger was defeated by his heartache. What else do you want to say? Say it all together. Chu Qingyan did not expect that after she said these words, he would be so calm. She originally thought that he would fly into a rage. She took a deep breath and hardened her heart. Since she had already said it, she might as well say it all. Big Ice Cube, do you know that love fades away? If one day, I'm no longer young, my hair is white and my face is full of wrinkles, will you still treat me the same? I've seen many wives abandoned by their husbands after they grew old, and then I saw their husbands carrying their mistresses freely. Those who said that they would be together for the rest of their lives all withdrew from each other's future halfway. When she said this, she looked at him a little sadly. Big Ice Cube, in the end, I'm still confident. The self-denial and loneliness in her eyes deeply pierced Xiao Su's heart. He reached out and pulled her into his arms. When she was still in a daze, he said angrily, "In the end, you still don't believe me." Chu Qingyan was speechless. Xiao Su sensed her silence and said firmly, "You can't use someone else's past to question our future. I may not be a good person, but I'll try my best to be a good husband, a good father. As long as it's what you want, I'll try my best to do it." Chu Qingyan was absent-minded because of his words. I've said it before. Once I've decided on someone, I won't let go easily. Ian, do you know that I'm really afraid that you'll sneak away again? I, Xiao Su, have never been afraid of anything in my life. It was only when you left without a word that I knew that there were things that I was afraid of. When he said this, Xiao Su tightened his arms and held her tightly in his arms, as if he was afraid that she would disappear again. Chu Qingyan, on the other hand, was moved by his words as tears welled up in her eyes once again. Big Ice Cube. Chapter 828. Women always felt insecure. For example, every time they were in front of their loved ones, they would repeatedly ask, "Do you love me?" If they didn't get an affirmative answer from the other party, they would always keep it in their hearts and wonder if the other party didn't care about them anymore. Sometimes, when the man was annoyed by the question, he couldn't understand why the same question could be asked so many times a day. Wasn't it annoying? However, even if they knew that the other party loved them, the woman still happily continued to ask. Some women would ask directly, while others would bury it in their hearts. Chu Qingyan didn't belong to the former, so she kept it in her heart. When everything came flooding in, the doubts and uncertainty about the future in her heart would snowball. And Liang Danjing's words were the last straw that broke the camel's back. When she was at her most indecisive, it gave her the final push. In front of love, no matter how strong a person was, no matter how confident a person was, they would still worry about gains and losses. Chu Qingyan was like that, and so was Xiao Su. So Xiao Su also admitted his uneasiness. I, Xiao Su, have been in the military for my entire life. I have suffered countless assassination attempts, both in the open and in the dark, but I have never blinked once. Only when you left without saying goodbye, I was flustered and didn't know what to do. Ian, you are more important in my heart than you think. No, you are already my life. These words had never been so light and yet so heart-wrenching. They struck her chest, creating a rumbling sound that seemed to want to shatter her eardrums. Big Ice Cube. She called out softly but didn't know what to say. However, because of his words, waves of emotions had already been set off in her heart, and it couldn't be calmed down for a long time. He caressed her head and laughed softly. His laughter carried a sigh. Ian, tell me you are already my life. Will I give up my life one day? Whether it is now or in the future, I will only cherish you, accompany you, and take care of you. If I leave you, then there will be no Xiao Su. As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Qingyan immediately struggled to get up from his embrace. She reached out her hand to cover his mouth and said in a panic, "Don't talk nonsense. What life or death? You will live to 100 years old. That's only if you're here. Otherwise, I'll be alone for so many years. Can you bear to see that?" He looked at her deeply. Chu Qingyan shook her head in a daze. How could she bear to let him die alone? Xiao Su stroked her long hair and looked at her gently. Are you still doubting, afraid and not confident? Tears welled up in Chu Qingyan's eyes, and she shook her head again. Xiao Su forced himself to ignore the tears in her eyes. His tone changed slightly, and he looked at her seriously. Now, I have something to say to you. Listen carefully. Chu Qingyan had not yet recovered from his words, but when she saw him looking at her seriously, her mind became much clearer. She blinked at him, and then nodded seriously. Although she didn't know what he wanted to say, she knew that it must be very important. She couldn't help but rub her eyes, and slightly tilted her head to listen. Yen, I'm very sorry. During this period of time, I've only been possessive of you and rarely asked for your wishes. Miss Chung is right about one thing. I'm too domineering and I only want you to live by my side. And I was too confident, so I didn't explain anything to you. I thought that with our hearts connected, you would understand. I think that if I had told you about my plans for the two ladies of the Liang family, you wouldn't have left home. If I had given you enough trust and revealed my heart to you, there wouldn't have been so many conflicts between us. Hearing his faintly lonely words, Chu Qingyan's heart ached. She wanted him to stop talking. I'm also in the wrong. Don't take it all on yourself. Xiao Su raised his hand to pat her head, indicating that she shouldn't interrupt. After he finished, Chu Qingyan obediently kept quiet. On the way to find you, I thought about a lot of things. All the problems were caused because I wasn't honest enough. That's why there were so many misunderstandings. I won't do it again. If there's anything, I'll discuss it with you instead of arranging everything for you on my own. When these affectionate words came out of his mouth, Chu Qingyan had an indescribable shock. But after that, she was still very moved. However, she didn't want to take advantage of him and brought up old scores. Then why are you still so fierce to me when you're here? Xiao Su sighed softly. Ian, no matter what, I'm still your legitimate fiancé. Seeing you standing with another man makes me jealous. But I really have nothing to do with Ji Linyang. You know that? Chu Qingyan couldn't understand why he would be jealous when he already knew about it. Xiao Su's face reddened slightly when he heard that. But his strong self-control only made the awkwardness last for a while. He didn't even notice the person in his arms before it disappeared. Then he lowered his head to look at her at eye level. Because I want you to only see me in your eyes. I want you to only have me in your heart. I want you to only think about me in your head. I'm too greedy. Not only do I want you, I want your heart and I want your entire life from now on. I'm very scary like this, but do you still want me? There was a person who used a frank, affectionate, and trembling tone to tell her that he cared about her very much. He cared so much that he only wanted her to belong to him completely. He even asked her if she was afraid. Did she still want him? How could she not be moved and fall in love with him when he carefully analyzed his big ice block and asked her seriously and fearfully in a humble and sincere manner? Xiao Su didn't get an answer. Instead, he saw the person in front of him looking at him with tears streaming down her face. The torment of waiting didn't make his heart ache as much as her tears. I won't force you to answer. He lifted his sleeve and clumsily wiped away her tears. Chu Qingyan looked at his doting expression and couldn't help but reach out to hug his waist. She laughed and cried at the same time. Big ice block, you're a big idiot, a big idiot. Hearing her words, he instantly let go of the thought of waiting for an answer. He couldn't help but slowly raise his hand and put it on her head, pressing her into his arms. I'm a big idiot, and you're a little idiot. He answered helplessly. Why wouldn't I want you? I'm yours and you're mine too. Big ice block, you big idiot, why are you always worrying about these questions? Chu Qingyan's voice was hoarse as she pounded his chest with her hands. In the end, she didn't dare to use too much strength because she felt sorry for him. Xiao Su felt like her fists were tickling him, but the bigger impact was her words. You're mine and I'm yours. He couldn't help but smile. We're both big idiots. We never knew that we loved each other more than we thought. Chapter 829. All the misunderstandings and misunderstandings originated from the fact that you didn't say anything and I didn't ask. That was why the distance between them grew further and further apart. That was why they parted ways. In the end, many people would attribute this kind of missed opportunity to fate. Actually, as long as one person opened his mouth and was willing to answer, then the ending would be different. That was why some people chose to give up all their thorns and shields. They used all their courage to ask for the answer. They walked out bravely, opened their hands in front of him or her, and asked, "Do you love me or not?" Thus, the people who loved him deeply got the answer they wanted. This was, "I want to love you more than you think." Chu Qingyan and Xiao Su were the same. The two figures snuggled up to each other. It was so quiet that it was like a painting. Hua Ling and the others, who were originally worried about them, saw this scene from afar and could not help but immediately retreat, leaving this quiet world to this pair of lovers. Big Ice Cube, tell me, if I lie to you and say that I don't want you, what will you do? All the knots in her heart were spilled out tonight. Now, Chu Qingyan felt that her body was as light as a feather. She was too relaxed, causing the words to come out without thinking. However, it was too late for regrets because the person hugging her had pulled her away from his embrace. He placed his hands on her shoulders, lowered his head, and touched her forehead. His gaze was like a torch as he said in a dangerous tone, "What do you think?" Chu Qingyan trembled. "No way, you're planning to kill me to silence me?" "It's not that easy. At that time, I wanted to imprison you by my side, so that you can never leave." Xiao Su snorted. Chu Qingyan touched her neck, puffed up her cheeks, and said, "You just said that you won't be fierce to me in the future." Xiao Su asked in a stiff tone, "Then are you still going to scare me?" She shook her head repeatedly. How would she dare to scare him? It would already be a blessing if he didn't scare her. Looking at her expression, Xiao Su couldn't help but chuckle. Leaning his head against hers, he raised his hand to caress her cheek. His heart relaxed. He had clearly been traveling day and night for the past few days and his body was extremely tired, but when he saw her standing in front of him, he felt refreshed and his tiredness wasn't so obvious. Xiao Su felt the person under his finger tremble slightly. He came back to his senses and realized that his finger had accidentally touched her lips in his momentary absent-mindedness. Before he could move his finger away, he felt the moisture from his fingertips. His heart moved slightly, but he didn't move his finger away. Instead, his finger lingered on her bright red lips. Previously, when he touched her face, because his heart was filled with grievances, he didn't pay much attention to it. But now that the two of them were open, they could only see each other in their eyes. All of their senses were strongly sensed by his actions, so she felt a little uncomfortable. Now that he was so brazen, Chu Qingyan only felt her entire body heat up and subconsciously wanted to avoid him. In the past, he would grab her from time to take a bite or two. He hadn't seen her for a few days, but now that the person he missed was right in front of him, how could he let her go so easily? One of his hands slid down from her shoulder. She felt like a soft feather, sliding over her shoulder, her back, and then landing on her waist. Then, it turned back into a warm palm. With a bit of force, he lifted her up and turned her into an affectionate embrace. She didn't avoid him, but instead was sent to his door. Chu Qingyan blinked. Looking at the person who was looking at her with the tip of his nose touching hers, her cheeks were like steamed buns, suddenly emitting hot air. Xiao Su's lips curled up slightly. The darkness in his deep black eyes retreated, just like the sea in the middle of the night. The moon rose and the stars shone brightly, reflecting the bright ripples. Specks of light covered the sea, dazzling and charming. Chu Qingyan was in a daze for a moment. She had always known that his eyes were very beautiful, even more beautiful than a woman's. As long as he didn't like to smile and only liked to look at his subordinates with a pair of black eyes, at this moment, seeing those smiling eyes as a woman, she also had to bow down. The little kitten was too immersed in the bright smile, so she didn't notice the light in the big bad wolf's eyes. Their breaths involuntarily intertwined. The light ink fragrance and the young girl's fragrance collided together. The combined fragrance made the two people's minds sway. As long as one of them took the initiative, their lips that were about to stick together would touch. In such an ambiguous atmosphere, their hearts moved. Like magnets attracted to each other, they would eventually collide. So the moment he leaned over, she couldn't help but slowly close her eyes. Receiving her silent consent, Xiao Su's eyes lit up. When they were in the Fu, he basically didn't touch her when she was at odds with him. Then, the two of them separated. He missed her so much that he went crazy. When he touched her softness, Xiao Su felt that all of his reason was leaving him. He couldn't suppress his longing. He couldn't stop his actions, overbearingly and violently rushing towards her. He wished that he could tear her apart and swallow her. Then, there wouldn't be any more accidents like running away from home and not being able to see her. This way, he could keep her by his side forever. Chu Qingyan didn't think that he would be so anxious, as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Her heart was slightly embarrassed. She wasn't chocolate or candy. But Chu Qingyan forgot that in front of a hungry wolf, she wasn't just a piece of fragrant meat, she was also white and plump tofu. Concentrate, don't get distracted. Xiao Su was dissatisfied with her wandering mind. His teeth ground against her soft lips to punish her. This bite caused her to feel a bit of pain. Her body also couldn't help but lean back with his actions. The raised angle made it easy for him to bite her. Was he a wolf? If this question was asked, this person would most likely generously nod his head and admit it. It was as if he wanted to take back all the benefits from the past few days. Chu Qingyan felt that she couldn't withstand his plundering. She loosened her arms around his waist and couldn't help but move to his neck. Then she hugged him tightly. It was as if this was the only way to find a fulcrum in this turbulent sea. Her spring clothes were cold. Her delicate skin passed through the thin clothes and stuck to his skin. It was like the cool water in a stream, making his hot heart feel a lot better. But very quickly, the hot feeling replaced the cool feeling. In Xiao Su's eyes, a flame slowly surged up, as if it was about to set a prairie ablaze. Chu Qingyan felt that the air was getting thinner, but her body's senses were getting clearer. Her arms were pressed against his neck and a hot feeling spread through her sensitive skin. It was as if it was going to burn her chest. The hot and numb feeling brought along with it, her entire face was burning hot. She couldn't help but open her eyes. She wanted to protest to the person in front of her. She couldn't breathe and was about to die from the heat. But when she met that pair of wolf-like eyes, her heart couldn't help trembling. She felt like a sheep entering a tiger's den. Now, was it too late to escape? Chapter 830. Guan Guan Jujiu in the River State. A gentle and graceful woman, a gentleman's desire. A mixed and graceful woman, a man yearns for her. She is exactly what he wishes for, yearns for her at night. Leisurely tossing and turning in bed. Most of the time, when they loved each other, they would stop at the end of the day. Xiao Su had always treated Chu Qingyan this way. Only when the love was strong. There were also times when it was out of control. Like this moment, Chu Qingyan felt her ears itch. She half closed her eyes and wanted to open them, but unexpectedly, when she wasn't paying attention, the initiator took her most sensitive area in his mouth. She almost went limp in his arms. "Don't, there's someone here." "Then let's go somewhere else." A low and hoarse voice reluctantly sounded in her ears. That warm breath on her skin made her whole body dry up. She wanted to refuse, but when she opened her mouth, her throat was so dry that she couldn't say a word. Xiao Su pulled her into his arms and jumped up the nearest tall tree. This tree was very tall, and the people on it could clearly see the scenery below. This tree was so lush that no matter what the people inside were doing, they couldn't see it. Because the tree trunk he chose could only allow one person to lean on, Chu Qingyan's whole body was nestled in his arms. This was very convenient for him to move his hands up and down. The hot kiss just now had already made Chu Qingyan feel like she had come out of a steamer. Her whole body was wet and steaming, and her charming eyes were like silk, seductive and enchanting. Xiao Su's throat tightened. He fixed her in his arms and covered her lips again. His hands slipped from her shoulder and groped down until it reached her waist. Although separated by clothes, Chu Qingyan couldn't help but have an image appear in her mind. Clean and slender fingers with distinct joints, with a sense of strength, nibbling away at her remaining reason little by little. Chu Qingyan felt like her whole body was about to ignite. Xiao Su's hand was on the knot on her waist. As long as he pulled lightly, he could do whatever he wanted. But he wasn't in a hurry. As he kissed her deeply, he played with the knot. Because she was wearing men's clothing at the moment, it was not as complicated as women's clothing, so it was very convenient. Xiao Su thought to himself, in fact, the little fellow wearing men's clothing was quite good at times. Of course, Chu Qingyan didn't know what the man in front of her was thinking. She subconsciously felt that this wasn't a good situation. She struggled to get up, but because of her movement, the belt around Xiao Su's finger pulled. Yes, it was solved. Chu Qingyan didn't expect her actions to speed up the hunting speed of the wolf opposite her. The words she wanted to say got stuck in her throat, and she forgot them. His eyes darkened, and a flame quickly ignited in the depths of his heart. Chu Qingyan secretly screamed. She wanted to reach out to grab the belt. Unfortunately, someone was one step faster than her. The palm of his hand held her small hand. With a little pull, her hand was wrapped in the palm of his hand. "Ian, are you that impatient?" The sexy and low voice exploded in her ears like thousands of fireworks, causing her to stare at him blankly. The lush leaves spread out behind him, and the light of the dark night penetrated through the small gaps, falling on his hair and shoulders. And he slightly curved his lips, the light on his eyebrows jumped. He lost his usual coldness and was more romantic and gentle. She was used to seeing his noble and cold appearance. In an instant, when she saw him like this, she was already immersed in his beauty. In an instant, there was a gentleman lying on his side. The wind and the moon were boundless. She opened her mouth, wanting to explain something, but she couldn't resist his beauty at the moment. Xiao Su's gaze fell on her beautiful face. He always knew that his little fellow was very good-looking since she grew up. This kind of good-looking was not the kind of coquettish in the eyes of the world. From head to toe, she was good-looking. In this world, no one could compare to her beauty. If Chu Qingyan knew the evaluation of the person in front of her, she probably couldn't help but want to roll her eyes. This was called blindness. But only beauty was in the eye of the beholder. Even if the other side was battered and exhausted, she was still more beautiful than the number one beauty in the world. Chu Qingyan felt that burning gaze fall on her face. Her cheeks burned and she wanted to turn her head to avoid it. When she moved, the person in front of her had already placed his hand on her shoulder. The two of them changed positions. When she opened her eyes, he was already covering her from above. When the warmth and softness touched, Chu Qingyan opened her eyes wide. She could only see the smile in front of her that was strong and affectionate. As if he wanted her to relax, his attack was gentle. He teased her bit by bit and was no longer as aggressive. Xiao Su looked at her eyes that slowly floated up. Her hazy eyes were beautiful and moving. She would never know how moving it was when she was obediently lying in his arms like a kitten. And he, at this moment, was sober and immersed. His hand stroked her back and landed on her waist. Then it wrapped around her lower abdomen and finally disappeared into the thin spring clothes. Chu Qingyan's body trembled. Her hazy eyes were filled with tears. She wanted to struggle, but his lingering gentleness made her slowly put down her hand and wrap it around his shoulder as if it was boneless. Sometimes, when one wanted to say something but stopped, it was more moving than any other time. The last bit of reason fell apart. A person with a pure heart and few desires could be indifferent to all the temptations of beauty. It was only because they had not met the one who could make them crazy. So no matter how restrained and disciplined a person was, when they met the one they liked, they would walk down the altar. They would be crazy for her, and become an ordinary man for her. But it was a pity. When Xiao Su moved his lips and wanted to move down, a clear cry sounded. It was followed by the sound of wings flapping on a tree. Then the green leaves fell with the movement. He suddenly stopped his movements and the intoxication in his eyes retreated. Chu Qingyan was also awakened from the rolling tide by the cry. She looked down and saw that she was lying under his body with her clothes disheveled. Her entire body was burning. She did not dare to look at him and wanted to struggle up, but a strong force fell on her shoulder. A certain someone, who was forced to stop halfway, was very depressed. He buried his head in her shoulder and deeply inhaled her fragrance. Then he calmed the heat in his body. "Don't move. Let me lean on you for a while." Hearing this restrained voice, Chu Qingyan's face turned red as she replied softly, "Yes." After a while, Xiao Su found his voice and said with a bitter smile, "Ian, I really want to marry you now." Chu Qingyan was so embarrassed that she did not dare to look at him. "I was too impulsive just now. In this kind of wilderness, I shouldn't have done that." He got up and put a hand on her head. He said with a smile, "I won't let you suffer." Chu Qingyan pulled his hand out of her clothes and glared at him in embarrassment. "Then don't touch me anymore." Xiao Su coughed softly to hide the unnaturalness on his face. Then he helped her tidy up her clothes. After both of them calmed down, Chu Qingyan felt tired. She could not help but close her eyes and lean into his arms. In her daze, she heard him say seriously and solemnly, "Ian, when you become of marriageable age, let's get married." Chapter 8:31. The clip-clop of horse hooves rang in her ears, distant yet clear. Sima Jun felt a dull pain in her head. She knew that she drank too much last night and her brain wasn't working well now. She raised her hand weakly. "Lass, I want to drink water." As soon as she finished speaking, a cup of refreshing tea was placed by her lips. Sima Jun praised inwardly. The lass was very tactful today. She opened her mouth and allowed her to serve her. After gulping down the large cup of water, Sima Jun smacked her lips and asked for another cup of water. Hangovers were really exhausting. After drinking the water, her body felt a lot more comfortable. Although she felt that her ears were particularly quiet and the person she was leaning on was a little strange, she couldn't resist the sleepiness and fell asleep again. After an unknown amount of time, she woke up and slowly opened her eyes. When she saw where she was, she raised her hand and covered her eyes. It had been a long time since she drank so much wine. It was really torturous. She propped herself up with both hands, but found that the texture under her hands was not right. She couldn't help but look down. What greeted her eyes was a large expanse of moonlight white. She suddenly remembered what was wrong after drinking the water. If she was leaning on the little girl's body, it shouldn't be so flat. Although the little girl was a few years younger than her, her body was curved in all the right places. It felt very wonderful to the touch. However, the person leaning on her back gave her a very unpleasant feeling. She blinked and looked around. Other than behind her, where did the lass in tanning go? Forget it. Escape first. She estimated the distance and size between the car door and the window. Just as she made up her mind to crawl out of the window, she suddenly felt a warm and domineering force around her waist. "Where do you think you're going now?" Sima Jun's body stiffened. A scorching breath filled her ears. Sima Jun couldn't get used to this intimate feeling. She jumped up and found a safe place before she dared to turn around to look at the person in the car. The person she didn't want to face the most was Ji Linyang. Ji Linyang rubbed his forehead helplessly as he looked at the person who was standing in front of him. In order to rush over before Xing Ming and the others made a move on her, he almost didn't have a good rest. When she was quietly sleeping in his arms, he couldn't help but be affected by her. He relaxed his mind and leaned against her to sleep. And her restlessness made him wake up with her. Sima Jun was about to ask him why he was here, and why the two of them were leaning intimately against each other. However, when she saw the tiredness in his eyes, her words got stuck in her throat, and she didn't say anything. She pursed her lips and looked at him silently. In the end, she couldn't stand the silence between them and said uncomfortably, "Are you tired? Do you want to sleep a little longer? Are you going to be my pillow?" Ji Linyang looked at her with a smile. "In your dreams?" Sima Jun snorted. "Then I won't sleep. If you're not feeling well, you can sleep a little longer. I'll wake you up when we arrive." Ji Linyang knew that she would say this, but he didn't expect her to agree. He had many things to deal with and didn't have time to waste, so he casually picked up the letter by his feet and read it seriously. Sima Jun also saw the open letter. She thought that he must be too tired to read it and fell asleep. A trace of guilt flashed across her heart. She bit her lip and made up her mind. Then Ji Linyang looked at the person in his arms. His pupils constricted, and then a trace of brilliance spread out from the corners of his eyes. Sima Jun was dazzled by his seductive look. She turned her head and said, "If it weren't for the fact that you're doing this for me, I wouldn't." Her words were stuck, and she didn't continue because a certain someone put down the letter in his hand, tightened his arms, and buried his head in her hair. He used her as a pillow and fell asleep. Sima Jun wanted to tease him, but when she heard his long breaths, she pursed her lips and drowsiness came again. She yawned and reached out to wrap her arms around his waist. Just like before, she found a comfortable position in his arms and fell asleep without a care. He buried his head in, and the corners of his mouth curled up into a beautiful arc. He hugged the person in his arms tightly and fell asleep peacefully. When she woke up for the third time, Sima Jun was still not fully awake. She jolted awake, but when she turned around she didn't see Ji Linyang's figure. She couldn't help but lean against the wall of the carriage. She patted her chest and wondered in bewilderment. Could it be that she saw him in her dreams because she thought about him during the day? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel a little defeated. She still couldn't let go of him. "Master, you're awake?" Tan Ying lifted the curtains, holding a bowl of minced meat porridge in her hands. Sima Jun calmed down. She didn't want to show her irritated side in front of her subordinates. She reached out to take the bowl when she heard Tan Ying speak again. "Lord Ji is right. You woke up at this time and had this subordinate bring the warm porridge over." Master, are you scalded?" Sima Jun only noticed that she had almost knocked over the bowl with Tan Ying's exclamation. Some porridge spilled onto her palm, but she didn't feel any pain and let Tan Ying help her wipe it. "You said that Ji Linyang is here?" Sima Jun was startled. So she wasn't dreaming? Tan Ying saw that she didn't look too good and couldn't help but reply carefully, "That's right. We were attacked last night. It was Lord Ji who came to help us out. Otherwise, we might have fallen into Xing Ming's hands." Sima Jun took her handkerchief and lowered her head to wipe her fingers seriously. Her voice was calm as she said, "Tell me everything that happened last night." Tan Ying made a sound of agreement, then recounted how Chu Qingyan had stalled the enemy last night and how Ji Linyang had led his men to rescue them. She recounted everything in detail. Sima Jun's head was still lowered, but she was distracted. Why did he come? She had clearly sent him far away. Why was he the first to rush over when she needed him? Then where is he now? Lord Ji has arranged his men outside. He said that if you stay in the carriage, you won't be able to eat. Tan Ying immediately lowered her head after speaking. Sima Jun harumphed. At least he has some self-awareness. "Then, Master, do you still want to eat porridge?" Tan Ying asked. Sima Jun glanced at the bowl of porridge and didn't take another look. She got up to lift the curtain and walked out. "I don't have an appetite." Tan Ying felt that it was a pity for the bowl of porridge. "Master, are you angry with Master Ji, or are you angry with yourself?" Sima Jun had just jumped off the carriage when she saw a person standing with his back to her in the sunlight. He was tall and slender, wearing a moon-white robe. His shadow was elongated and his black hair fluttered in the wind. The surrounding trees were lush, and Mount Dai was ethereal in front of them. She didn't know why, but this ordinary scene reminded her of the phrase, "peaceful times." Chapter 8:32. Ji Linyang turned around and saw the person standing beside the carriage. She had bright eyes and white teeth. Her features were exquisite and flawless. A warm breeze seemed to blow past her cold eyes, dispersing the coldness and making the flowers bloom. Sima Jun looked at him for a moment. She ignored the ripples in her heart caused by his gaze and walked towards him. "Why are you here?" When they met, she still had a lot to say. Now that they met, her words were frighteningly weak. She chose the worst opening line. As soon as she spoke, she seemed to see the smile in his eyes fade a little. Ji Linyang seemed to unintentionally look at the distance between them. 3 steps. It was neither close nor far, but there seemed to be an invisible wall between them. I received a secret report from Shadow, saying that there's been a change in Lan Zhuang, so I came. He smiled slightly and spoke in a very normal tone. He was a hall master of Lan Manor. If Lan Manor was in trouble, he would not shirk his responsibility. It sounded very reasonable. Tan Ying, who happened to get off the carriage, heard this and couldn't help but look at Ji Linyang in confusion. Lord Ji was thousands of miles away from here. Even if he received a secret report from Shadow, he couldn't have arrived faster than Shadow. These words sounded different in Sima Jun's ears. Thank you for your hard work. She smiled politely and appropriately. Ji Linyang nodded slightly. He didn't plan to tell her how difficult the journey was. As long as he saw her safe and sound, nothing was more important than that. At this moment, he saw Tan Ying carrying the bowl down the carriage and couldn't help but frown. You didn't eat? Sima Jun was just thinking about how to reward him as the head of the manor when she suddenly heard these irrelevant words. She didn't react and replied, I don't want to eat. As soon as the words left her mouth, she regretted it. How could she be so honest? However, it was clear that Ji Linyang didn't listen to her seriously. He was paying attention to her fingers. There was a small red mark on the back of her hand. She felt pins and needles on the back of her hand. Following his gaze, she understood. No wonder she felt a burning pain just now. It was because she accidentally spilled the porridge and was scalded. She raised her other hand and wanted to cover it uncomfortably. When she told him that it was fine, his other hand was faster than hers. In the blink of an eye, her hand was in his. I wasn't by your side for a while, and you got hurt. Her tone was no longer as calm as before, and there was a hint of reproach. Upon hearing his reprimand, Sima Jun's temper flared. She was about to say, what are you going to do about it? But she was defeated by his stern expression. She was in the wrong. She turned her head away and forgot to retract her hand. She whispered, I was just careless for a moment. After that, she didn't hear him speak again. She only heard the rustling of clothes, and then she felt a cold sensation on the back of her hand, which was very comfortable. She couldn't help but turn around, only to see him applying a bottle of ointment on the back of her hand. From this angle, she could see the warm sunlight shining on his eyebrows. Under his thick and long eyelashes, there was a shadow, gentle and affectionate. Her mind wandered as she recalled the happy times when the two of them rode their horses in the Jianghu, drinking wine with swords in hand, chasing the moon and snow. The cold ointment spread on the back of her hand. She came back to her senses, and a clear sentence rang in her ears. My young master has a bright future ahead of him. He gave you 10 years, which is already my master's bottom line. I hope that estate master Sima can keep his promise of 10 years and let my young master return home. The warmth that had just filled her heart was instantly drowned out by those cold words. She couldn't help but try to retract her hand, but she couldn't move at all. She narrowed her eyes and said coldly, I can apply the ointment myself. You don't have to be so nice to me. Ji Linyang looked up at her. In that glance, Sima Jun saw her own shadow, as well as his unspoken persistence. Don't move. Just do it quickly. He lowered his gaze and didn't say anything else, treating her injury seriously. It was only a short moment, but Sima Jun felt as if a long time had passed. But when he let go of her wrist, she felt as if it had only been a blink of an eye. It was as if 10 years were very long, but when you looked back, you would find that everything was fleeting. After experiencing it for a long time, memories would come back quickly. If she could always live in her memories, it would be a kind of happiness. Lin Yang, if this storm is over, you should leave the Lan Manor. She looked at his back and called out to him. This wasn't the first time she had said this, but every time she said it, she would feel all kinds of emotions in her heart. But she had to force herself to say it. Ji Linyang turned and took a step forward to approach her. He lifted her chin with one hand and exerted a little force with 2 fingers. His voice was terrifyingly deep. You seem to like making decisions for me. Back then, you tried so hard to make me stay, but now you want to send me away so easily. Do you think that I, Ji Linyang, am the kind of person who will come and go at my beck and call? They were so close that their skin was touching. Sima Jun didn't dare to look at him directly. She bit her lip and raised her foot to step on his boot. He dodged and released his hand. Sima Jun took a few steps back. When the distance between them was safe, she suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and raised her eyebrows to look back at him. Lin Yang, the 10-year agreement is up. You're free now, aren't you? Back then, you wanted to leave, but now you're shamelessly trying to stay. What are you thinking? When he said this, he had already turned his back to her. I thought that you knew all along. Lin Yang didn't turn back. After replying, he continued to walk forward, leaving her with a straight back. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he wouldn't be able to control himself and would strangle this fickle woman to death. Sima Jun looked at his back and couldn't help but turn to kick the tree trunk. That bastard! Why, it hurts. She hugged her leg and wanted to cry. Today, she had injured her hand and leg. She was drunk. At this moment, Tan Ying, who had left, came back with a bowl of steaming porridge in her hand. I said that I'm not eating. Sima Jun stood on one leg in grief. Master Ji said that you should be hungry after venting your anger. He asked this servant to heat it up and bring it over. Tan Ying looked down and replied. Sima Jun rubbed her starving stomach and muttered, How does he know? Tan Ying heard her muttering to herself and immediately handed her the porridge with a smile. Master Ji was still the one who understood her master's temper. Seeing her master eat awkwardly, Tan Ying thought for a moment and said, Master, tell me something that will make you happy. What can make me happy now? Sima Jun pursed her lips. However, she didn't want to dampen the girl's spirits. She still said, Say it. Tan Ying's wrinkled face instantly broke into a smile. Master, haven't you always wanted to find out about the whereabouts of that Shueishin lipstick? This subordinate just received news that the boss behind that Jiangnan continuation product has been found. Who is it? Sima Jun's hand trembled as she immediately asked. Tan Ying originally wanted her mistress to make a guess, but seeing how concerned she was, she decided not to keep her in suspense. Smiling, she said, So far away, yet so close. It's Miss Chu Qingyan. Chapter 8:33. Clang! The ladle in her hand fell to the ground. Sima Jun didn't care about the soup dripping down her sleeves. Instead, she looked at Tan Ying in disbelief. She's the boss. Tan Ying immediately took out a handkerchief to help her wipe the soup. As she wiped, she replied, That's right. We lost contact with you Ying earlier and only just received the news now. If we were a step earlier, we could ask Miss Chu where the owner of the Snow Heart lipstick is. As she spoke, Tan Ying's tone was full of regret. She was just one step away from helping her master find the girl from back then. Sima Jun was silent for a moment. In the end, she couldn't help but smile. There's no need to ask. I already know who she is. Master knows about the relationship between Miss Chu and that girl? Tan Ying was very surprised. Sima Jun nodded. The person from back then was her. Actually, she should have noticed long ago that the girl gave her a very familiar feeling. However, she couldn't figure out where this sense of familiarity came from. Only now did she understand. Because they came from the same place, there was an inexplicable sense of familiarity. This was a feeling that no one in this era could give her. However, she didn't expect that the girl had already left after the mystery was revealed. Then, Master, do we need to send someone to invite Miss Chu back? Although she didn't know why her master was so persistent in searching as her trusted aide, Tan Ying asked. Sima Jun waved her hand. No need. There are people eyeing us covetously now. It's not safe. After this incident, we'll meet again if fate wills it. Back then, if she had shown up to befriend the little girl, perhaps the two of them would have exposed her identity. However, she had never regretted it. Ever since she had transmigrated here, she had believed that this world was predestined. For example, when she didn't know where she would be in the future, she met Lin Yang. When danger was everywhere, she met the little girl. After resting, the carriage continued on its journey. Sima Jun, who had slept enough, didn't feel sleepy at all. However, Tan Ying beside her had already dozed off. Sima Jun chewed on a blade of grass as she lay on her side in the carriage. Her mind was replaying the incident at Blue Manor. As she thought about it, she couldn't help but feel irritated. She pulled open the curtains to get some fresh air. The moment she did, she saw Ji Linyang on his horse. Her hand trembled and she wanted to put it down, but it was too late. Ji Linyang's gaze had already landed on her face. She had a feeling that if she didn't lift the curtain, his gaze would also fall down. Could it be that he had been watching her carriage the entire time? His gaze was still warm and gentle. Sima Jun clenched his fists and pretended to be relaxed. I heard from Tan Ying that Xing Ming is already planning to attack the headquarters. Shouldn't we hurry over? Miao Wu has already brought Red Shadow to the headquarters ahead of time. We will be able to meet up with Shadow tomorrow. Neither the headquarters nor you will be in any danger. When she spoke, she felt his gaze pause on the back of her hand before moving away. The back of his hand, which had originally been numb, suddenly felt a little hot. She leaned against the car window and raised her eyebrows at him. You make it sound like I'm weak. If I hadn't been drugged, Xing Ming's men wouldn't have succeeded. Ji Linyang glanced at her indifferently. You clearly know that your status is different, but you still sent Shadow away and dared to wander around with only Shan Guang and Tan Ying. You've been very bold recently. Sima Jun choked. She seemed to have been reprimanded just like that. I have a motive for doing this. She frowned and didn't reveal her intentions. Ji Linyang chuckled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. You just want to lure out the person who has been secretly meddling in the manor recently. Unfortunately, you didn't expect that person to be Xing Ming. Moreover, he has a lot of power, so you fell into his trap. Am I right? Sima Jun didn't expect that he would know her like the back of his hand even though he wasn't at the Blue Manor for the past few months. He could even guess her thoughts so accurately. That's right. When the people we sent out to the manor were killed one after another outside, I suspected that there was a mole in the manor. When our people go out on missions, the time, place, and number of people are all kept secret. Only the insiders know. This time, I came to Jiangnan because I wanted to lure the enemy. That was exactly what Xing Ming wanted. He couldn't suppress his ambition and made a move on me in advance. Sima Jun's words didn't ease Ji Linyang's expression. Instead, his gaze turned cold. By the time Sima Jun realized it, he had already urged his horse closer to her carriage. She raised her head and saw his stern expression. She couldn't help but mutter in her heart. How did she provoke him again? Have you thought about it carefully? Basically, everyone in the Blue Manor is on your side. How could Xing Ming have the ability to mobilize so many people? Is there someone secretly supporting him? You're always so confident. If I hadn't met Miss Chu, I might be burning paper money for you right now. Jun Yao, when will you be able to change your stubborn temper? Sometimes I wish. Ji Linyang narrowed his eyes. Finally, he tightened the reins in his hands and fiercely cracked the whip, urging the horse forward. Sima Jun looked in the direction of the billowing dust and subconsciously touched her neck. Did he mean to strangle her just now? Hearing Tan Ying's laughter, Sima Jun retracted her hand and glanced at her speechlessly. What are you laughing at? What's so funny? Master, have you realized that Master Ji can't do anything to you? Every time I see him stomping his feet in anger, this subordinate finds it funny. Tan Ying stuck her tongue out mischievously at her. Sima Jun couldn't help but want to facepalm. What kind of subordinate had she nurtured for so many years? However, Tan Ying's words still entered her ears. She looked in front of her again, where there was already no one. Then, she lay on her back in the carriage and stared blankly at the wooden plank above. After laughing, Tan Ying leaned on the small table and asked curiously, Master Ji's conditions are so good. Why didn't you accept? What conditions? Sima Jun answered casually. Tan Ying immediately replied, He's very good-looking. He's our Blue Manor's most handsome man. Even outside, very few people can compare to him. Shallow. In terms of appearance, he did meet her standards. Tan Ying continued, Master Ji's martial arts are very high and his literary talent is brilliant. It can be said that he's well-versed in pen and sword. Is that so? If she hadn't been opportunistic back then, with his intelligence, he wouldn't have lost to her by 10 years. Tanning didn't give up and continued. More importantly, Master Ji only has you in his eyes. He doesn't care about anyone else. I didn't see him. Sima Jun turned over, not intending to answer these nonsensical questions. However, Tanning, who had quieted down, suddenly leaned over and snickered in her ear. Master, you don't mean what you say. Sima Jun closed her eyes in embarrassment and pretended to sleep. Chapter 8:34. Compared to Sima Jun and Ji Linyang's conflict, Chu Qingyan's side was filled with the warmth of spring. Because Chu Qingyan wanted to ride a horse, Xiao Su had prepared a horse for her. However, Chu Qingyan felt a headache coming on. She only wanted a horse, not a person. She shifted uncomfortably. Big Ice Cube, don't we have enough horses? You don't have to squeeze on the same horse as me. Xiao Su's tone was very natural. I asked you to stay in the carriage with me, but you didn't want to. Since that's the case, I can only stay on the horse with you. Hearing the word carriage, Chu Qingyan's cheeks couldn't help but heat up. Last night, he had gotten someone to prepare a new carriage, and they had stayed inside. It would have been fine if they had stayed, but ever since they came down from the tree last night, he was no longer satisfied with the sweetness of her lips and tongue. For the entire night, he had tormented her until she was covered in sweat. Although he had only used his hands, she was so embarrassed that she didn't dare to face him. After waking up this morning, he had secretly taken advantage of her again. Chu Qingyan was worried that in the carriage, he would go berserk. She couldn't stand that kind of intimate and shameful thing anymore. She had told him that she wanted to ride a horse, but who knew that he would follow? Big Ice Cube was getting more and more shameless. In the end, she could only bite the bullet and let him follow without saying anything else. But perhaps she was thinking too much. He only wrapped his arms around her and let the horse walk slowly. He didn't touch her. She couldn't help but relax. Leaning into his embrace, she treated it as a free cushion and comfortably enjoyed the scenery around her. Xiao Su held her loosely with one hand and held the reins with the other. Feeling that the person in his arms had let down her guard, he couldn't help but smile. How could he not know what this little fellow was thinking? When the prey let down their guard, it was time for the hunter to take action. However, in this warm and comfortable mood, he only wanted to quietly stay with her. In these few years of being together, it was either he or she who was busy. It was rare to see such leisurely time. However, Chu Qingyan felt a little strange. Big Ice Cube, aren't we going back to Jiangnan first? There's no hurry. Xiao Su dismissed her with 2 words. Chu Qingyan was even more confused. The group of people slowly walked to a patch of green grass. Xiao Su waved his hand, and everyone immediately dispersed. Those who were supposed to feed the horses, those who were supposed to collect firewood, those who were supposed to start a fire, but no one surrounded them. Xiao Su had no intention of getting off the horse. He held the reins and walked unsteadily into the depths of the grassland. It would be midsummer in a month's time, and such refreshing weather was rare. Chu Qingyan felt that she could rest anywhere she wanted, so she followed him around and strolled around the city. Is that a kingfisher? Chu Qingyan suddenly pointed in surprise. She saw a small emerald green bird quickly fly in front of them. Then it made a turn in the air and flew to the side of the forest. When the kingfisher flew away, Chu Qingyan looked away and saw a small bump on the ground that seemed to be shaking. She couldn't help but squint her eyes to look carefully. Suddenly, a pointy head popped out. It looked around cutely before slowly crawling out. It's a hedgehog. This was the first time Chu Qingyan had seen such a cute little animal. She was afraid that her voice would scare it, so she whispered in Xiao Su's ear and shared this pleasant surprise with him. Xiao Su saw the unconcealable joy in her eyes and felt that this was the right decision. He couldn't help but be happy because of her, even though at the beginning he had some intentions that were not suitable for children. Joy was actually a very simple thing. It was just seeing her smile made his heart feel relaxed and at ease. She had stayed by his side for so many years. He didn't want to see her little girly side. He finally remembered that when she first came to his side, she was only 10 years old. Normal children would still be ignorant at the age of 10, studying, learning how to write, how to play the zither and learn embroidery. How could they be like her and follow him through wind and fire? Seeing such a simple smile on her face, he realized that his little fellow was someone who was easily satisfied. In this place, no one knew them. There were no restrictions, no power, and no disputes. Chu Qingyan was completely relaxed. She saw some little animals that she had never seen before. She was surprised and looked very cute. At least in Xiao Su's eyes, she was the cutest. Chu Qingyan saw a multicolored butterfly. When it opened its wings, it was bigger than a folding fan. Chu Qingyan was stunned and couldn't help sharing it with Xiao Su. "Do you want me to catch it for you?" Seeing her so happy, he couldn't help but suggest. "No, let it live freely in the mountains and forests. What I like is just the way it flies without any restrictions." Chu Qingyan patted his hand lightly and glared at him disapprovingly. Then, she said excitedly, "That's right." Xiao Su smiled and followed her. Until a long time later, when she recalled the time when the two of them wandered aimlessly, she felt that it was the purest and most comfortable time in her life. At that time, she could feel that the person sitting behind her completely belonged to her. He was an ordinary person. Ian. Chu Qingyan was still breathing in the mountain grass fragrance when she suddenly heard the person behind her call her. She turned around with a smile on her face. "What's wrong?" Xiao Su looked at her delicate pink cheeks. His heart moved and he went around her back. With one hand holding the reins and the other holding her waist, he leaned forward. She never thought that he would kiss her in broad daylight. While she was in a daze, he had already stopped and moved away from her lips. But he was still very close to her. "Ian, you like freedom. I won't restrict you. If you don't like something, I won't force you to do it. As long as you don't leave so easily." Xiao Su leaned against her, the tip of his nose touching hers. His lips were smiling, but his eyes were serious. Chu Qingyan was slightly moved. When two people live together, there will be friction, bickering, and arguments. Life can't always be peaceful. But I will control my temper and tolerate you. If I make you feel wronged, you can ignore me, hit me, or scold me. But you can't just leave like this without saying a word. She pursed her lips and looked at him. She knew that it wasn't easy for him to say these words today. Perhaps he was still brooding over the fact that she left Jiangnan. She wanted to say something, but he raised his hand to stop her and let her continue listening. "A lifetime can be long or short. But if we spend it all on you hiding from me, then it's not worth it. Our days are short and we don't have that much time to waste. Do you know that?" When he said this, Xiao Su's gaze lingered on her body lovingly. It was as if he was looking at a rare treasure, cherishing and serious. Chu Qingyan's eyes were wet. She turned around and hugged him. "I know. It won't happen again. It won't happen again. I won't leave you alone again." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.